During their time, something very strange happened. Many people ran through the streets in fear and tears. Black fog enveloped the entire world. This was the revival of evil, which had been concealing and accumulating power for hundreds of years. In other words, the deities came to their world again. 10 years ago, he caught a glimpse of a man who became his hero for the rest of his life, and then he decided which path he would choose. Monsters appeared in the world, which were told about in ancient myths. They attacked people, creating explosions. Above the moon, high in the sky, stands the god attacking behind their planet. Magical powers emanated from the monsters, and the knights tried to fight it. In this world, which belongs to people, all revenge must be eliminated. The bearded man said to the other guy he was actually very jealous of him. He was able to awaken the forbidden ruins at such an early age. And he worked as a night watchman for so many years and literally waited for them to wake up every year. It's only a pity that he is now over 40 years old and has lost all prospects for his development. He came closer to the guy, touched his shoulder, and while smoking a cigarette asked him not to waste his talent. Wouldn't it be better to use your power to protect others? The guy answered him by asking a question. What if he wants to use his power only to protect his family? The man, without turning around, raised his hand up and said, "Boy, he will accept any of his choices." The man's face was bloodied. He began to pull out his weapon with a menacing look and said, but his sword skills show great promise. A monster appeared in front of him. He swung his weapon and continued to speak in a calm tone. And the choice he made would become an example for all humanity. It is he who will lead all people. Everyone wants to protect their little home, protect their family, teammates, classmates. These tens of millions of small families, they all united and formed a night watch whose purpose was protection. The man cast a spell, Forbidden Ruin, Shining Moon. The girl who also fought the monsters screamed, Forbidden Ruin, Phoenix Dance. Another warrior used the Hand of the Death God spell. Meanwhile, several people gathered in one room and one of them asked the other a question. Was he the one who was looking for them? Agent Seraphim. Seraphim answered, sitting in a chair with the light leaking through the window, that's right. He continued to say, he has an agreement. He will join the night watch for exactly 10 years. After exactly 10 years he will leave. The man listened to him attentively, sitting opposite him, and asked the question, does he know the duties of the night watch? Seraphim asked again, death or life? He answered, death in the name of protecting the planet. Meanwhile, the long-haired monster, who was in the water with a trident, created huge waves and shouted with a menacing look, mortal, does he know who he is? God Code 9 Poseidon. Seraphim spoke to him, creating a path for himself, parting the waves from his path and stopping in the middle of a reservoir. He is Poseidon, the god of the seas. Poseidon shouted to him, they are the most arrogant country. Where is their respect for the gods? Is it possible to treat them, the gods, in this way? A bright lightning flashed in the sky. Poseidon came closer to Seraphim, pointed his huge trident at him and asked a question. Does he really think that his mortal body will be able to withstand the onslaught of him, Poseidon himself? He answered with a more than confident expression on his face. At the same time, another god named Loki flew into the sky, holding a trident in his hands, and asked the warrior a question. Did he really want to stop him with this ridiculous power? Everything around was destroyed. Many warriors lay unconscious on the ground. One of the warriors, with a bloody face, grabbed his chest with a reflective hand and began to take something out of his pocket. He pulled out a skull badge and asked himself the question, death or life? Death to protect the planet. He began to scream loudly with anger, the heroes who died in the fight for humanity, he is coming to them. Suddenly Seraphim grabbed his hand and the man became wary of such suddenness and looked at him questioningly. Seraphim grinned and asked, does it seem the situation has reached a critical stage? He entered this area with his team behind him. There were many warriors who gathered to defeat the god Loki with their joint forces, and Seraphim shouted with a menacing look, swinging two swords, he bans the gods on their planet. Bright lightning struck the ground. Some guy was climbing the stairs from the cave. He stopped in front of the majestic castle and said, he appears here every time he falls asleep, every 5 years. He dreams about this terrible psychiatric hospital every day. He opened the gate, walked inside the courtyard and continued talking. And he always feels that this destroyed mental hospital is calling him, but inexplicably he is not allowed into it, and in every dream this is exactly what happens. He knocked on the gates of a huge castle and said, it's him again. They must open the gates for him. In this illogical dream, any of his actions do not make any sense. All he can do is knock on the gate throughout the entire dream. Knock on the gate. Meanwhile, one of the family members knocked on his room and said, brother, the supper is ready. He got out of bed and replied, okay, he'll go downstairs and eat. He tried to cheer himself up and sat down on the edge of the bed for a while, thinking that again throughout his entire sleep he had been knocking on that gate. It was exhausting him so much. He put on a red blindfold. From that day on, he became not only mentally ill, but also a blind man. He opened the doors blindfolded and began to walk down the stairs, holding onto the walls. And in other words, he began to see the world differently. His brother entered the kitchen. His aunt was preparing a dish in his kitchen, and he grabbed the plate and shouted to the cat that was climbing towards his food that he would not give this creature anything. His aunt told his older brother that the doctor was waiting for him to examine him in his room. He should go see him quickly. The guy replied, okay. When he came to the doctor's office, he asked him a question, is his name Lin Kai? He's 17 years old, right? Kai replied, that's right. The doctor adjusted his glasses and continued to ask him if he could tell him more about the accident 10 years ago that led to his mental disorders and blindness 10 years ago. He answered yes, 10 years ago. That night he looked at the moon and saw an angel standing there alone, shrouded in a golden glow. Angel with 6 golden wings. The doctor asked him again to clarify, a flaming angel. He answered, yes. From that day his eyes never opened again. The doctor checked the box on the paper that he was mentally ill and answered him, understandably. Kai noted that he, of course, understands that all this was his imagination. The doctor asked him again in bewilderment, what did he say? He spoke back, after he saw the angel, he fell from the ledge and hit his head upside down, and damaged his optic nerves and therefore went blind. The doctor thought for a moment and answered him that he understood everything, which is why he changed his mind and noted in the documents that he had a normal mental state. After which he closed his medical file and said, well, his story is written down, there is nothing wrong with it, and he hopes that he will continue to come to terms with his blindness and continue to live well, despite any difficulties. Kai thanked him for these words and returned home. His brother met him and asked the question with curiosity, have his eyes passed yet? He was having dinner at the table and answered him, well, yes, he already sees something, but he practically does not feel the light. Zio Kai, he shouldn't worry about his eyesight, he's fine. The aunt sitting opposite them at dinner also joined the conversation and said, just let them continue to be patient. Someday everything will return to normal, and until that moment they will not torment themselves with questions about his vision. He agreed with this and she continued talking. They had already sorted out the documents for transferring to another school. But is he really sure about this? Has he thought it through? Kai spoke back, yes, he decided it completely. His eyes will soon return to normal, so he should already be heading back to the starting line. Like his peers, he should start now if he wants to pass the university entrance exams. The aunt was delighted by these words and said in response with a smile on her face, her baby, even if he doesn't pass the exams, everything will be fine. They won't stop loving him because of this. They are his family. Kai spoke back without interrupting his eating. Brother, he will also take care of him. At that moment, Kai lied, his vision will not return to normal, he still can't even open his eyes, there's no way at all. No matter how hard he tries to do it, he can't. He tried very hard, he began to feel short of breath, drops of sweat began to flow from his face from the effort, but he also did not lie, even with his eyes closed he can see everything around him. Since his eyes underwent some changes 5 years ago, allowing him to perceive his surroundings, at first he could only see a few centimeters, but as time passed, he felt further and further, everything became clearer, and now his abilities reach a radius of 10 meters. If a person can only see 10 meters, then he is still considered blind, but to him, those 10 meters mean everything. An angel with golden wings was in the sky next to the moon and he wondered, is he still looking at him? After that, Kai turned away from the window, took a deep breath and decided that he would go to bed early. He's going to knock on those gates again. Meanwhile, a monster appeared on the streets of the city, which emitted magical light and destroyed everything around. This monster was not alone, and these creatures were chased by people in red cloaks, who shouted to them to stop. The girl shouted to the other soldiers, the two of them should intercept them through the gateway. Her order was obeyed and she turned to the old man Zhao. He replied that he accepted everything and stopped next to the no passage sign and said that all 3 signs were in place. A bright magical light appeared in his hand and he used the Forbidden Ruin spell, after which a bright flash of light occurred around him, which was directed into the sky and he shouted, forward. At this moment, several such flashes appeared, which were accompanied by loud exclamations. The monsters were caught and the girl told them that they don't even have to try, they will never get out of this formation. Cleanup operation, they're starting. Then she grabbed the sword in her hands and continued the attack with confidence in her eyes. A new day has arrived, many people gathered in the square with backpacks. Some girl with a loving look said to her friend, let her just look at this handsome guy. It was Kai who came to school with a crutch and a blindfold. It may be his first day of high school, but he's ready for anything. The lesson began, the teacher adjusted her glasses and said with a friendly look, guys, they should greet their new classmate, his name is Kai, and she hopes that they will take into account his peculiarity and will all help him together. She touched his shoulder and asked them to chat first and join him in the team. He thought, teacher, she herself understands that all the small groups with similar interests were formed already in the previous semester. It will be very difficult for him, as a transfer student, to join at least some team, and even more so for him, a transfer student with disabilities. This is at the level of impossible, although there are advantages to this and he can concentrate on his studies. Suddenly a girl ran up to him, grabbed his hand and addressed him as a classmate and offered to take him to his place. All his classmates began to worry about him and help him get to his place. She accompanied him and asked him to walk carefully and not touch the desk. Another guy also came up to him, took off his backpack and asked if he could help him with his bag. He told them back, there is no need for this. Another guy was already adjusting his chair to make it more comfortable for him to sit, and said, look, his place is here. The lessons were over, all his classmates gathered around him and began to be curious and ask questions. What school did he transfer from? What's wrong with his eyes? Did they become like this because of an accident? Because of what incident? One of the girls turned to him and said that her name is Jong Kyan. She communicates well with all the teachers, and if he needs something, he can talk about it and not be shy. Another guy said, pointing to himself, that his name is Lai Yifei and he promises to treat him to dinner sometime, he just has to say when it's convenient for him. Another guy said with a smile on his face that his name was Liu Yuan. He sat surrounded by guys in bewilderment and wondered why everything was not going according to the planned scenario. And he asked the question directly, why are they so kind to him? Do they know him? Kyan looked away with a lollipop in her hand and answered him, to some extent, yes, the class teacher told them about him. Suddenly Yifei intervened in the conversation and said that, in fact, his aunt came to school a couple of days before his arrival. She turned to the guys and said that her nephew would soon be transferred to them. He has poor eyesight and a cold character, but she asks them to take good care of him. Yifei continued to talk. That day she stood at the school door and handed out candy to everyone, one after another, and almost begged them to take care of him, explaining that her boy Kai was cold on the outside, but soft on the inside like cotton candy. He became uncomfortable and he realized, so that's what's going on. The teacher began to explain in class that 100 years ago there were more than 200 countries on Earth, which were located on 7 continents and 4 oceans. Everything was exactly like this until a mysterious fog appeared in Antarctica, devouring everything. He realized that he had no right to disappoint his aunt. She worked hard for him. The training continued as the mysterious and highly toxic fog spread at a terrifying rate. It consumed 98% of the entire Earth's area in just 24 hours. The nature of the fog was beyond human knowledge. Not a single method existing at that time helped against this, and no one knows for sure whether there are other countries outside the reach of this very fog. Perhaps they are the last survivors on this planet. A bright luminous ball appeared in the darkness, from which a monster emerged and began to growl loudly and destroy everything around. That same girl began to fight this monster. She shouted to her partner that he should not leave anyone behind and that he should kill them all. He said back that he accepted it. It was a guy from the Night Watch named Wen Kimo. She continued to fight and shouted to the others, if they continue to hold the mouth of this path, then these monsters will not be able to escape. After these words, she swung her sword with a likely scream and created a magic circle in the air. The monsters flew away from the incredible force and were attacked. The girl turned to her partners and screamed, this is not an opponent with whom you will have to bother for a long time. Simo was alarmed by something. He looked into the distance with a frightened expression on his face, pointed his finger in that direction and said loudly, Hanin. She was dumbfounded in bewilderment and asked him again, what? Then she turned sharply to the side, and at that moment the monster pierced her through with its horns. Her blood spilled and she flew away, unable to say anything. The guys from her team were very scared for her and their movements stopped. They started screaming, Hanin. Blood flowed from her mouth and many wounds. She tried to speak through the walkie-talkie in a trembling voice. Report, the battle is over. Because of her mistake they were defeated. They asked her what happened. She should answer please. Her hand dropped. After some time, a group of guys along with Kai were heading along the road to the house. They discussed pressing issues and one of the classmates asked the other, was he serious? Some kind of perverted maniac. Yifei replied, well, of course he's serious. His friend told him about it. More than a dozen people died here. Kyan, who was walking next to Kai behind the guys, shouted to them, are they generally okay in their heads? All they do is intimidate others. Suddenly, Kai smelled a strange smell and wondered, is this the smell? Isn't that the smell of corpses? He stopped, and the guys continued to walk and discuss that this is impossible. If something wrong was said here, then all the news would have been talking about it a long time ago. Yifei asked Yuan, does he seriously think that this could not happen? Then he offers to see for yourself. Or was he scared? Suddenly Kai stopped the guys and asked them a question, do they smell this smell? He turned towards the dark passage. Yuan looked into the distance and said, when he told him about this, he himself began to think that it smelled quite strange. He suggests coming in and seeing what's going on there. They started to go inside. Yuan liked the atmosphere and turned on the flash to take a picture of what he wanted, but suddenly, thanks to the flashlight, he saw a dead, bloody girl, whose clothes were torn. All the guys were very frightened by this sight and were dumbfounded, screaming in fear. Suddenly she screamed for help. Many monsters formed around her, who began to growl at the guys and intimidate them. Yifei rushed to run in the opposite direction and shouted to them, why did they stand up like idols? We need to get away from here quickly. Yuan and Kyan turned around sharply and ran after him, continuing to shout loudly, and Kai made a sharp movement with his hand, grabbed the weapon and shouted, he feels right behind. They shouldn't look back. He also began to run away from the monster, which was already catching up with them. Kyan took the backpack off her back and threw it at the monster's face, stopping it for a moment. Kai ran last, But Kyan, who was ahead of him, was attacked by the monster. Kai realized this and wondered, is there another monster in front? He found himself among them and tried to avoid being hit. The monster used the magic light and continued to attack, and Kai thought that he should fight. He swung his weapon at the monster and made many sharp, luminous movements. But suddenly the monster attacked him with a bright magical ray and he screamed in pain. All the guys fell to the ground with a roar, the blindfold fell from Kai's eyes and he shouted, gritting his teeth in pain, what a horror, his shin. He looked at the monster and saw that in the arms of this creature there was Jiang Kyan. The monster made loud noises, and another one came closer to Kai, and it wasn't just one. Another monster's gaze was directed at Kai from above, who jumped from the roof and screamed loudly at him. Kai wondered why this was happening to him. In childhood, he lost his sight in his whole life and studied as a mentally ill person, and no matter how hard it was for him, he endured everything, and when it turned out that the terrible time was behind him and he began a new life, they appeared, these freaks. Suddenly, he became very angry and started shouting that he hated these monsters. His eyes illuminated the area with a bright light. An angel from the moon noticed the bright radiance and drew attention to it. At the same moment, a loud bang occurred at the site of their battle, after which a bright magic ball touched the ground. Kai's eyes continued to glow with a bright light and a yellow beam appeared that went straight into the sky and illuminated everything around. Meanwhile, in the city, next to the no passing sign, Zhao rushed from his seat and shouted, what's going on? Honggin, what happened to her? Kimo intercepted the phone and spoke, the encirclement operation failed. They were ambushed by ghostly creatures, and Hongying was seriously injured. Zhao shouted, asking the question, ghostly creatures. How many escaped and where did they go from? He replied, the 3 of them entered the old city southwest of him. He ran in that direction and shouted that he would deal with them. But at that moment a bright ray of light appeared far from him. Going into the sky, he was very surprised, stopped and wondered, is this the birth of a forbidden ruin? Simo was also surprised by this and asked, what is this incredible power? This person, his strength is above the level of the 5 spheres and according to his feelings it is at the level of the 6 spheres. Zhao continued to run and wondered how someone so powerful could end up in the small town of Canaan. He stepped into some liquid, but continued to run without paying attention. The guy who looked at the screen and saw the luminous body of Kai looked at it thoughtfully and began to think, this energy is not like the energy of the forbidden ruins of people, and more like the one that belongs to God. Meanwhile, Kai's body continued to glow with a bright light. God Code 3, King of Angels, Michael. He looked at his new body and spoke, finally. 10 years have passed and he is back in the flesh. A monster was heading towards him, but Mikhail easily dodged the blow and realized that it was too slow. Not only his reaction speed doubled, but also his perception range, now not 10, no, he senses everything within 20 meters. Many monsters were attacked and bloodied, he felt everything. One of the monsters headed towards him, right above his body the same angel with golden wings that protected him shone. Kai twirled the weapon in his hand and stabbed it into the monster an instant later, attacking right through it. The monster's blood spilled and it was destroyed and fell to the ground. Kai became very alert, grabbed his chest and said, the body can no longer move. The surrounding monsters looked at him questioningly and abruptly began their attack again. Kai grabbed his chest and said, gritting his teeth, it's over, he won't be able to escape. Zhao arrived to his defense, pulled out a sword and pierced the monster right through, spilling the creature's blood. Everything lit up with a bright light from the use of magical powers and Kai was dumbfounded with surprise and continued to watch everything that was happening with interest. Zhao created a bright red beam that went into the sky, and also directed his powers towards the monster and divided it into 2 parts, easily defeating the creature. Kai looked at him with respect and thought, this is such a strong man. Zhao turned to him, lit a cigarette and spoke on the radio. He was done with everything. The cleanup team, we need to head to the old city, remove all the remains of the monster's corpses. After which he asked the question, who is he? Zhao asked again, does he like it? Kai stopped questioningly behind him and did not answer. Zhao turned sharply to him, showed a bloody knife and asked, does he like this? Kai sat on the ground and asked him again in bewilderment if he liked it. He pulled a cigarette towards him and said, so later he will say that he likes it. Right? Does he want the same one? If he joins him, he will give it to him. Kai turned his gaze to the side and replied that he was not interested. Zhao was surprised by such indifference and asked why. Kai replied, he might die. Zhao hugged him by the shoulder and said, okay, he shouldn't make hasty conclusions, he invites him to talk. His name is Zhao Qingcheng, and by the way he is not a bad person. Kai cleared his throat and replied, yes, of course he believes him. Now can he let him go? He needs to pick up his school bag, there are very important educational books there. Kongchen allowed him to go, but asked him to return. Kai waved his hand to get rid of the cigarette smoke and Kongchen spoke out loud. It was somehow strange. He used all his strength to the maximum, but even so he could not compare with this young man. After some time, Kai returned home without a blindfold. Kai ran up to him with a cat on his head and asked, brother, why did he come back so late? He began to take off his shoes and answered him, everything is fine, he was left after school. Has he already finished his homework? Kai showed a sheet of paper with several notes and said, almost finished, yes. After that, he sat down at the table. Kai walked past him and said, okay, he's tired, so he'll go to bed. And he should go to bed as soon as he finishes his homework. He answered him, okay, after which he called him again and asked him again, is everything alright? Kai stopped on the staircase, was silent for a moment, then turned around and answered with a smile on his face, yes, everything is fine, okay, he's already going to bed, good night. Kai waved his hand and said good night in response. He played with the cat with his hand and asked a question, does he smell a strange smell too? His body smells like blood. Kai slammed the door to his room, threw his backpack on a chair, lay down in bed and thought he was so tired. Who would have thought that something like this would happen to him immediately after transferring to another school? His uncle, who was calling him somewhere, asked him to join him. He is clearly an unusual person. Is he part of some big organization connected to the dark side of their world? He wants to find out what exactly happened then, but if some secrets become known, the worst will begin to come out. He doesn't want to be a hero, he just wants to protect his home and family. When he found himself in a dream, he again arrived at the place next to the castle and said, here he is again and he will have to knock on these gates again. How tired of this. He touched the gate, but suddenly pulled his hand back and, frightened, asked the question, did it open? He pushed through the gate and went inside, still perplexed by what was happening. These gates have finally opened for him. The sign at the entrance said psychiatric hospital. He continued to admire his changes. He took a step and went inside the castle, saying that he had been waiting for this for 5 years and was finally let in. He touched the castle wall and stopped, wondering why he felt like he had been in this mental hospital before. He continued walking further and said, the arrangement completely coincides with that one, it's very strange. Suddenly something surprised him. He looked into the long corridor and said, no, after all, everything here is completely different. He stopped in front of the door, on which many red signs were painted, and wondered if it could be that a real god was locked in this mental hospital. He touched the door handle, after which it opened and he was again alarmed. Various signs glowed bright pink and a bright light appeared in front of him. He looked into the distance and saw a girl in a black dress with long black hair sitting on the bed. He entered the room and asked, is this a girl? She looks very sad. She looked at the floor, he waved his hand and said hello, after which he told her his name and asked her a question, what is her name? Suddenly, someone's voice began to report, the patient is Nukta, the task is to help her treat a mental illness. When the progress of treatment reaches 100%, you can select some of her abilities, the current progress in treatment is 0%. A system window appeared in front of him, which he looked at with wariness and wondered, is this the ancient Greek goddess of the night, Nukta? He began to closely examine the system window and suddenly he received a new notification. Nukta, the ancient Greek goddess of the night, one of the 5 goddesses of the creators of the night. Her body, the embodiment of the dark night, is one of the greatest goddesses in Greek mythology, possessing powerful strength that allows her to restrain almost any god. He wondered, is she such a strong goddess and suffers from mental illness? And he needs to cure her. But what kind of disease is this? Depression, obsessive-compulsive disorder, schizophrenia, or just plain delirium? He turned to Nukta and asked her, does she hear and see him? She turned to him and shouted, child, her child. They made eye contact. Kai's face changed, and he asked the question, why is she speaking Chinese? She extended her hand to him and with tears in her eyes and embarrassment on her face continued to say, finally she had found him, her child. These words pierced his consciousness and he wondered, child. For as long as he can remember, he has been raised by his aunt all his life, but he does not remember his parents. Could this be possible? She continued to scream at him, her son. Mom is coming to him. And she began to approach, but came through him, screaming, son. He was dumbfounded after the incident and turned questioningly behind him. She grabbed a huge vase, hugged it and with tears in her eyes screamed, her child. It's actually alive. She finally found it. After that, she threw the vase and ran to the nightstand, shouting, Hypnos. Her baby is here too. He watched her actions in bewilderment and realized, it seems he now understood what exactly she was sick with. She uttered many unknown names that filled Kai's consciousness. He stretched his hand upward in a cold sweat and woke up in his bed feeling tired. He touched his face and wondered what he should do with her now. Meanwhile, several schoolchildren turned back because of some screams. Mr. Zhao shouted, this freak deceived him last night, so today he personally came to his school, the place where he is hiding. Then he thought that this guy was strong. I thought he was at least at the level of the 3rd kingdom, but this idiot turned out to be a novice in the field of the 1st. In any case, they must contact him and get him as soon as possible, because they must not let him fall into the hands of the Church of the Ancient God. The priority of resolving this issue is higher than the proceedings with the Ghost King. He lit a cigarette again and wondered, I wonder how the captain and the others were doing. Is the pursuit of the Phantom King successful or progressing? Suddenly he was alerted by something behind his back. He turned to the guard through the fence and shouted a question. Did the child he was asking about not come to school yet? The guard took a deep breath and did not answer him. Meanwhile, Kai ended up in the hospital. The doctor said to him, looking at the computer, the friend he just told him about, she treats everything she sees as her children. He answered, right. The doctor asked him again, and how long has she been crying? He replied, this happens all the time. He made several notes in his medical record and asked again, does he constantly sit in his room and tell stories to the vases, stools and table? He answered exactly that. The doctor asked again, and how much does she sleep? He replied that he thought she hardly did it. The doctor was silent for some time, after which he decided to speak out. His girlfriend does not have mental illness, she just has strong delusions. He recommends bringing her to their hospital and they will admit her. He clasped his hands and said in response, she is in a special place, so it will not be possible to hospitalize her. There was an awkward silence between the doctor and Kai, and the doctor said in response, if she cannot be hospitalized, then in order to help her, you can only rely on medicine. He will prescribe them several pairs of medications. Then he can buy it, come back and give it to her. Even if after this her condition does not improve, then she needs to go to the hospital. Kai looked away and wondered, is it even possible to transfer medicine from real life to a dream? He planted a bottle of medicine while going outside and caught it on his own, after which he wondered, even if he managed to bring it to her, would it be able to work on her? The girls who noticed him nearby began to discuss him with curiosity. One of them asked, who is this guy? The girl answered her, she doesn't know, but maybe this is someone's too young father. Suddenly Kai stopped and looked into the distance, after which he realized that Mr. Zhao was coming towards him. He scratched the back of his head and said he waited for him from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. His whole body was numb and he managed to tan in the sun. It was as if he knew that he was here, so he didn't come out of spite. Kai was dumbfounded, after which he stared at him and abruptly began to run in the other direction. Qin Cheng shouted to him to wait for him and stop, and reached out his hand to him. Kai tried to run away from him, but after a while Qin Cheng flew up and stopped right in front of him, grabbing him. He pushed him against the wall and shouted, where did he run? He made him wait a long time, so he won't let him leave. Kai shouted back to him, uncle, who is he anyway? If he starts pestering him, he will scream. Qin Cheng answered him with a menacing look that he should not pretend that he knew nothing. He sees right through him, so he won't run away today. He grabbed him by the hand and shouted, he's going with him, they're about to have a serious conversation. Kai shouted to him in fear not to pull him so hard and asked the question, where are they going? He replied that he would know about it when they arrived. After some time, they arrived at the Love Hotel and Kai was very scared and opened his mouth in shock. Qin Cheng pulled him inside the building and told him that they needed to go there. Kai was scared to death by this, tried to grab his hand and shouted to him. What was he thinking? He should wait, they can't go there, he has hemorrhoids. Qin Cheng turned to him with a menacing look and a moment later they were already inside the hotel, where they were met by the girl at the check-in. And Qin Cheng said to her, continuing to hold Kai's hand, please let them have a dynamic passion room with a king-size bed. Kai's whole body shook, he covered his face in shame and asked, did he seriously bring him to such a place just to talk? The guys alerted the girl at the registration and she sent them to this room. Qin Cheng loudly opened the doors, they went inside, he threw Kai onto the bed, causing him to scream loudly. Qin Cheng stood over him and asked him to tell everything about how he was connected with the King of Angels, Michael. September 1922, a team whose purpose was to explore in the fog observed a huge dragon flying in the sky. It was Leviathan, the dragon of chaos. This is the first time in history that people have noticed a mythical creature. Their very existence undermined humanity's understanding of their world. In order to maintain stability in society, they hid the existence of mythical creatures. Since Leviathan was discovered first, this creature was assigned the code number 1. Qin Cheng continued to explain to him, and the King of the Angels, Michael, whom he saw, was the third mythical creature discovered by people. He was observed in 1928, God Code 3. These words surprised Kai and he silently listened to his story. Qin Cheng lit a cigarette again and continued talking. March 1928. A ray of light from a golden sword came to their planet directly from the moon. It traveled through space and leveled a volcano in North America, and then they learned that there was also a god on the moon. Due to the density of the fog, it took the research team a year to reach that same volcano. They investigated this thoroughly and eventually discovered a sealed god right in the crater, assigned the code 4. It was the fallen angel, Lucifer. After some time, they discovered that children born after the spread of the fog had the ability to awaken special abilities. These abilities they called the Forbidden Ruins. The capabilities, scale, characteristics of the Forbidden Ruins, all this will grow along with the growth of the owner's spiritual strength. Yesterday's golden light is energy vibrations, Michael. At the moment of his manifestation, his Forbidden Ruins were supposed to awaken. Kai looked at his hands and realized, so this is what it was. His ability to feel what is happening around him is the power of the Forbidden Ruin, and the dynamic vision and divine power of the Seraphim, and then the fact that his vision returned to him is something other than the growth of his abilities. According to the strength of spiritual power, they divide the Forbidden Ruins into 6 areas. He poured water into a glass and said, "There is so little power that it will fit in a mug." The first kingdom, "There is so much power that it will fit in a pond." The second kingdom, "There is so much strength that it fits in a river and it has many flowing channels and tides." This is the third kingdom. "There is so much power that it can fill the world's oceans, but it can still be changed." This is the fourth kingdom. "The force with its quantity violates the spatial dimension, but is still measurable." This is the fifth kingdom, but immeasurable in comparison with the other 5. This is a kingdom that, with its dimensions, violates the self-understanding of cosmos. This is the sixth kingdom. After all the moralizing, Kai shouted in delight, "Wow, it's so cool." "Then what kingdom is he in?" King Cheng informed him that he was in the first realm, meaning he was slightly stronger than an ordinary person. Kai remained silent and thought, then, the fact that he managed to open the gate to the mental hospital in a dream is nothing more than a breakthrough into the spiritual kingdom. Perhaps this means that every time he performs a task with patience, he gets closer to breaking into another realm. He sat on the bed and thought about it, and suddenly decided to ask King Cheng, "What about him? What level is it at?" Because of the question asked, he choked on water, put the glass on the table, cleared his throat, looked away and said that he did not have a forbidden ruin, and therefore, accordingly, there was no spiritual power either. Kai was surprised by this answer and asked what he said. "Doesn't he have a forbidden ruin? Then how did he kill those monsters?" He smiled and replied that he relied on combat experience and strict combat training. Before he joined the Night Watch, he was a Special Forces soldier. Kai replied, "This is amazing." After which Mr. Zhao continued to tell him, bending his fingers, now they will talk about the Forbidden Ruins. There are 3 ways to awaken a Forbidden Ruin. The first is what he just told him about, naturally finding the Forbidden Ruin. The second is to use special prohibited goods on the black market. And the third, when God himself grants him strength. Some gods give part of their power to their chosen people in this way, making them their preachers. Naturally, for their power, the gods ask their preachers to do what they are told. Throughout all time, adequate preachers of God can be counted on one hand. There are only a few of them, but it is a proven fact that they acted according to the will of their gods. Most of the discovered God preachers believe in an evil God, so they tried to destroy humanity and turn the world into chaos. They founded an organization called the Church of the Ancient Gods, and now he has to tell him what Michael told him to do. Which side is he on? Lin Kai responds in confusion, saying that he doesn't understand what he's talking about. Mikhail didn't tell him anything, but Zhao Kencheng insists that he didn't say anything. That is, Kai didn't hear his voice. Something doesn't add up. According to their assumptions, Mikhail is either on the neutral side or on the good side. If he lent him power for a while but didn't say anything, then what are his intentions anyway? Lin Kai closes his eyes and replies, he has no idea what Mikhail's goals are, but even so, he is not going to carry out any of his orders. He doesn't want to get involved in this complete mess, so whatever he gives him, he'll give it back. Then he gets up and waves Kencheng's answers. If his answer suits him, then he leaves. Zhao Kencheng asks in bewilderment what? He grabs his hand and asks, in irritation, what he is doing. He told him so much about this world, and he doesn't want to ask him anything. Is Kinney interested in learning about him and the organization he works for? But Kai wearily replied that he was not interested. He had already seen a similar situation on TV. If he finds out the secret of this organization, he will either have to join, or they will kill him, or he will be imprisoned and brainwashed there. Hearing this, Kencheng lightly hit Kai on the head and exclaimed that the young man should watch less TV. With these words, he turns him around and leads him back to the bed. Lin Kai clarifies that if he finds out about his organization and doesn't want to join, then nothing bad will happen to him. Kencheng puts his hand on his shoulder and immediately answers, of course not. They are soldiers, after all. The worst thing they can do is make him sign a non-disclosure agreement. What he just said is complete nonsense. Kai sighs and agrees, okay, then he will listen to him. Zhao Kencheng reveals that after the discovery of Leviathan, high-ranking officials of their country urgently created a military response organization to prepare for the invasion of the mythical creatures. This organization was called the 139th Biological Response Task Force. Over time, they observed more and more mythical creatures, as well as carriers of forbidden ruins. In addition, they tried to establish contact with several gods and teach their soldiers special combat talents to resist mythical creatures. Today, this organization is called the Night Watch. They are soldiers, and their task is to protect the country from gods and monsters. The Night Watch exists to protect people from suffering. Isn't such a noble and honorable organization suitable for talented young people? After all, they want to protect their families. The soldiers successfully accomplish this goal by joining them. Kai is also very talented, so it is quite possible for him to join them. After listening to everything, Lin Kai replies, yes, the organization is noble. He respects that and also respects Kencheng, honestly, but he cannot join them. Zhao Kencheng immediately clarifies why. Kai looks out the window and explains that he has a family, an aunt and a cousin. His aunt worked at the factory day and night for him and his brother. Because of them, 10 years of her life flew by like one. It spoiled her health. But she is very stubborn. It is obvious that she often cries because of the sudden pain in her body. She doesn't want to show it to them, and she has to endure it. But he always sat next to her, and all the time she thought that he didn't see anything and didn't understand. She lived a hard life. She is very tired, and her cousin is very smart. He has a great future ahead of him. Therefore, he cannot leave this house. He has to study hard and then earn a lot of money to support his family. He set himself a goal. He must buy a big house for his aunt and cousin. He wants his aunt to never have to return to this factory. He doesn't want her to continue to suffer and exhaust her body. They took care of him for 10 years and never once gave any reason that they wanted to abandon him as a blind, disabled man. Now that his eyes had finally healed, he had to leave them behind and abandon them. Then he stands up and seriously says that his duty is to stay close to them. He always wants to take care of his family. Zhao Qingcheng looks into Kai's eyes and then smiles and says with a sigh, "Sticky guy." He didn't seem to think about it too simply, but Lin Kai leaves with a wave of his hand and says, anyway, he is grateful to him for telling him so many things. He will sign a confidentiality agreement. Lin Kai, coming home, takes off his outerwear and says, this world is truly complex, mythical, and strange. Well, he talked to that man, now it's time to continue treating diseases in his sleep. Suddenly, he walks past the table, notices something shiny, and asks the question, what is it? When he picks up the item, he sees the engraving of the name Zhao Qingcheng. He looks at it and wonders, is this man's thing? It says that if dark creatures come again, he will stand in front of thousands of people, and to protect them, he will cross the sword with the abyss and stain the sky with blood. Kai sat down on the bed, and the thing in the light noted how noble the words were. Is this some kind of Night's Watch motto? After a while, in Kai's dream, someone is screaming in the dean's office, it's useless. It's useless. She doesn't want anything else. With these words, various things fly out of the office and, falling on the floor, are broken into pieces and torn. Lin Kai puts on a medical gown and gets ready. Well, today's treatment begins from now on. A few moments later, he is in the dining room and explains to Nayak that now they will try hypnosis. Then he closes his eyes and thinks he has already been to a mental hospital, he has already studied Greekology, but even so, he still has no idea how to deal with this. When he leaves through the book, he learns that, according to myth, Nukta is indeed one of the oldest and most powerful gods in all of Greek mythology. She has more than 20 children, including the god of death, Thanatos, the god of sleep, Hypnos, the goddess of fate, the goddess of kin, and so on. Maybe her delirium started because she misses her children too much. At this time, Nukta places bottles and cans nearby on the rug and, turning to one of the bottles, calms it down. It shouldn't worry, its brother will be back soon. Then she takes the can and says that his brother was just playing around somewhere. Lin Kai looks at her and wonders, since she considers these bottles and cans to be her children, then what happened to her children? What exactly made Nukta so excited? Nukta still hugs one of the bottles and says affectionately that Thanatos, her baby, has been getting into some trouble since childhood. When he returns, she will need to teach him a lesson. But since 3,000 years have passed, why hasn't he returned yet? Lin Kai stands next to her and notes that he did not expect that the goddess of the night, who is considered one of the strongest on Olympus, would turn out to be such a bad mother. Suddenly he understands, it seems he knows exactly how he can help her. Then he goes around her, stands next to her, and thinks Nukta misses her children madly. She sees them literally in everything that surrounds her. Then maybe he just needs to play along with her. Afterwards, he hugs her and wonders, will he be able to reach her heart then? Kai then whispers to Nayak that he has returned to his mother. Hearing this, she drops the bottle and, hugging Lin Kai, replies with relief, finally, her child has returned. Lin Kai continues to hug her, and the information window announces 3%. He fulfilled the conditions for receiving the reward. He still continued to hug Nayak and, closing his eyes, thought, finally, he has at least achieved something. They sit like this for some more time, but soon Nukta hands Kai a mug of hot drink and asks Thanatos to take it. Lin Kai holds a mug in his hands and reads on the information window that he has completed the quest at 3%. This was the first condition for receiving the award. He is randomly given one of Nayak's abilities. He presses the button to begin the extraction and, looking at the rotating hands on the dial, thinks, as expected from the great goddess of the night. Her abilities are worthy of praise. Suddenly, he looks at us with a stopped arrow and wonders what divine fertility means. Can this skill really be used in combat? Then the other arrow also stops, and he again wonders, what is the dance of the starry night? Well, it doesn't sound too cool, of course, but at least there's no fertility. Suddenly, Nukta hands him a plate and says that this is his favorite dish. He looks in her direction, then grabs the luminous hieroglyphs with his hands and, squeezing them, exclaims, this power transforms his body. His soul, his body, this power completely embraces everything. The information window announces that he has gained the ability to dance the starry night, which means that he is now able to communicate with nocturnal animals. He also intimates other creatures if he fights at night. Under the cover of darkness, it will be almost impossible to notice. At dusk, his regeneration, speed, strength, and vitality are 5 times higher than normal. Lin Kai looks at the palms and admires them in his mind. Wow, dancing the starry night gives him many benefits. Only due to the fact that his characteristics are 5 times higher than those of an ordinary person, he has already been called a Superman. Even if he reaches normal physical form, a 5-fold bonus will allow him to step beyond the boundaries of human capabilities. He will finally gain the power with which he can protect his family. Nukta turns to him again and says that his brother misses Thanatos very much. He should hug him. Kaiyu then extends his hand to her and exclaims, "Okay." She gives him Halopridol, which is an antipsychotic and antiemetic. But Lin Kai puts it on the table and, leaving the room, shouts that he will be back soon. Moments later, he tries to open the wide doors, but when he does, he finds himself in a large vault filled with containers of pills. He asks in bewilderment, what was that? The next morning, at 6:30 in the morning, Lin Kai's alarm clock rings and he turns it off. Then he gets up, looks out the window, and notes that he seems to be very rested. This is the first time he has slept so soundly. After that, he goes down the stairs and sitting at the table, he turns to his aunt, who is standing near the front door, and asks why she is going to work so early today. Aunt answers, a new batch of parts has appeared at the factory, so they have more work to do. Then she turns to him and says with a smile, that's it, she's gone. He must have breakfast and feed his brother. Kai stars back in amazement, then squints sharply and opens his eyes to watch her open the door and scream for them not to be late for school. Suddenly, he gets up and addresses her, Auntie. She immediately turns and asks, what is it? He announces that he can now see. Auntie's eyes immediately fill with tears, and she comes over for a hug. Auntie also exclaims joyfully, great, no, this is wonderful. Kai hugs her back and smiles slightly. Zio Ki then runs up and shouts joyfully, great, he can finally see. He's so happy for him. For some time, he continues to joyfully shout that this is great. After some time in middle school, a girl asks Kai, is his name Lin Kai? He sheepishly answered yes. 3 girls surround him and admire him with smiles, how handsome he is. How are his eyes? He has very beautiful eyes. Lin Kai is embarrassed and silent. 2 classmates sit indifferently at neighboring desks. One of the girls keeps asking how it happened, can he tell? It just seems to her that a miracle happened. Kai modestly replies that he returned from the hospital yesterday. There, he was properly cured. After a while, on the roof, 2 classmates bow to Lin Kai standing in front of them and ask for forgiveness. Liu Yuan exclaims, because of his classmate Kai, he was so scared at that moment that he simply couldn't think of anything better than to escape. Lai Yifei also stands back and makes excuses. He left him and Jian Kaiyan in a terrible place, which is why this happened to her. But Lin Kai asks them not to say anything. He puts his hand on Yuan's shoulder and calms her down. This is typical for them, people. After all, they were animals too. It's an instinct to save lives. If you were in their place, he thinks that he would also run away from there faster than them. Yuan clarifies, right. He's not seriously angry or blaming them. Lin Kai steps aside, and then he turns to him and clarifies, by the way, did those strange people come to him too? Did they make him sign a non-disclosure agreement too? Lin Kai says nothing. Then Liu Yuan adds that a man came to him that night. This man scared him to death. But even so, he still signed what the man asked for. Lai Yifei then replies thoughtfully that he actually wants to join them. Kai turns around and asks, does he want to join? Yifei explains that being an ordinary person is boring. Joining a mysterious and powerful organization is exciting. It's the dream of all men to fight the enemies lurking in human society. But Lin Kai closes his eyes and eerily clarifies that the fact that he thinks this is cool is too reckless. He may die on the first mission, and his body may not even reach his parents. After these words, he goes to the exit from the roof and adds, he will leave this world, and there will be nothing left of it. Lai Yifei looks after him in surprise and wonders what. After a while, evening comes, and a cloud gathers over the city. A strong wind blows. Lin Kai opens the front door, looks out the window, and notes that it will rain soon. He then goes inside and shouts that he is back. But suddenly he looks ahead and sees Zhao Kencheng. He sits at the table and greets him, yo. Kai exclaims in bewilderment, how did he find it at home? Then Kencheng shows the thing and explains that he threw this thing into his pocket. He was able to find it with her help. But Lin Kai passes by and clarifies that he said that he would not join them. At this moment, Kencheng puts a small wad of money on the table and replies, he understands. But this time he is not here about this issue. Lin Kai turns around and clarifies, what does this mean? But Zhao Kencheng takes out a lighter and cigarettes and asks if he minds if he smokes a cigarette here. But Kai immediately shouts that he objects. Then Zhao Kencheng reveals that his father died when he was 6 years old. His mother worked 2 jobs and still had barely enough money to support him. He was a high achiever, but in a village school, it is not difficult to become an excellent student. But even despite his success at school, he still dreamed of becoming a soldier. And when he left home, his mother just watched without saying anything. She stood and watched. It was difficult for him to decide to leave. He wanted to stay with her, but when we decided that the verse was enough, it was enough to just leave. He put an end to this issue. He was obliged to leave home in order to achieve military success, then receive your distinguished service medals and return home wearing a nice military uniform. He ended up in the special forces, and his promotion grew at an alarming rate. He was assigned to the Night's Watch division because his strength was close combat. Lin Kai listened to him carefully. King Cheng suggested that his mother was too tired from work. Because of this, she suffered from poor health. Therefore, after demobilization and separation from the special forces, he wanted to stay in the village as a personnel employee to help her completely, but he joined the Night's Watch. Therefore, he could not stay with her to ensure a dignified old age. He then turns to Kai Yi, pats him on the back, and tags him, but he is different. He is much smarter than him and more prudent. He has dreams and ideas and wants to stay with his family to take care of him. He is very glad that he chose this path. He must live his life calmly and happily, so to speak, and he can leave the protection of peace to their organization. Then he points to a wad of money and explains that he brought him money so that he could buy something for his aunt or cousin. He doesn't want her, who replaced his mother, to get too tired at work. But Lin Kai resolutely replied that he would not take it. Then Zhao Qingcheng hands him a pack and exclaims, "This is for his aunt, he should take it." But Kai Yi also persistently pushes it aside and explains that his aunt doesn't want this. She won't accept it either. Although his family is poor, they have income. They do not need the money that a soldier receives in exchange for risking his life. So he had the opportunity to feed his family. Hearing this, Zhao Qingcheng gets up from the table and notes with a smile what a stubborn young man he is. Well, that's all then. He must go. At this time, there is a heavy downpour outside. Kai Yi goes outside with Zhao Qingcheng, and he notes that he does not need to be accompanied. Zhao Qingcheng then turns to Lin Kai, shakes his hands, and says that he wishes him a bright future. Kai Yi, in return, also wishes him to accomplish a worthy feat. When Qingcheng leaves, Kai Yi's aunt approaches and, taking her packages, he says, finally she has returned. He can help her. Aunt asks who this man was. Does he know him? Kai Yi replies that she doesn't know. He is an ordinary person, a janitor. Zhao Qingcheng stops near a street cafe and, sitting down, looks at the thing and reads the inscription, "If dark creatures come again, he will stand in front of thousands of people and, to protect them, cross a sword with the abyss and stain the sky with blood." Suddenly, someone calls him and shouts through his earpiece, "They have an emergency." Qingcheng clarifies what. Suddenly, he jumps up from the table and asks, "Will the Phantom King be here soon?" At this moment, the man who calls him confirms, yes, they stumbled upon the blood of the Ghost King. Judging by the location, he is heading either to the old city or to the center of the new city. Zhao Qingcheng starts running and clarifies that he is in the old city right now. How can he find him? The man clarifies that Hongyan has already headed towards him. She will help. His task is to evacuate the residents of the old city, and the sooner the better. Zhao Qingcheng continues to run and asks Hong Ying, isn't she hurt? What about the captain? He replies that the captain headed with a large detachment towards the city center. But because the center is overcrowded with people, they will not be able to completely evacuate everyone. Once the Ghost King appears in the city center, the consequences will be disastrous. Zhao Qingcheng asks why they are doing this. Do they want to send the Phantom King to the old town and fight him here just because there are fewer people living here? The man asks old Zhao to calm down. He didn't tell him that they would do this to the old city. But if the Phantom King is actually heading towards him, then he should not engage him in direct combat. He is too tough for him. Qingcheng should try to trap him in the ring airspace. In this way, he will delay him, and the detachment led by the captain will have time to approach. Qingcheng answered briefly he understood. He then opens the trailer doors and mentally notes that the ring of air may not trap the Phantom King. As soon as he was in front of people, they would definitely panic and create a mess. So he needs to do everything smartly so that the king is not seen. It seems to him that evacuation in a bunker is the best idea. Thus, all he needs to do is evacuate the inhabitants of the old city to a safe place as soon as possible. Thinking about this, he jumps from the roof of the building to the roof of the road signs and hurries to Lin Kai's house. When he reaches his destination, he thinks, here he is again. Judging by his calculations, this family should have sat down to dinner, but suddenly he smells something. Qingcheng turns his head to the side and wonders, is this the smell of a corpse? Then he notices a gray, seeing liquid rising from the hatch to the surface. He comes closer and notes that he hit the jackpot, but this is the worst jackpot of his life. He then reports that he has spotted the Phantom King in the old city, then screaming for him to stop. Their squad is heading to the old city right now. Old Zhao must not fight the Ghost King. He must lure him into the trap they agreed upon. That is, into the ring airspace, but at this time Zhao Qingcheng prepares signs and places them around the hatch. He explains that the ring airspace cannot hold the Ghost King's masks for even 1 minute if there is no one in it. The man continues to shout into Zhao Qingcheng's earpiece that he should not fight him under any circumstances. But Qingcheng, with the help of accurate throws, dilutes the signs and replies that it is too late to evacuate anyone. The man tries to dissuade him, but the sacrifice happens every day. They, the night watchmen, are not omnipotent. They cannot prevent all death and suffering. They can't lose an experienced member of their squad to the Phantom King, no. Zhao Qingcheng does not answer and sticks the sign into the ground with all his strength. The man is trying to hear the answer, old man. Zhao is listening to him. He must calm down, there is no need for all this impulsiveness. Suddenly, Qingcheng turns to Xiangnan. Does he remember the oath they took? At this moment, there is an explosion and a monster appears from the underground. Zhao Qingcheng prepares to attack and continues, although there are not thousands of people behind him. Behind him is the whole world of this young man. That's it. He then attacks the monster, which reaches out its paw towards him. Suddenly they are surrounded by a dome of raindrops, and Zhao Qingcheng uses the forbidden ruins of the ring airspace. He and the monster disappear into it, and a hole forms in Luke's place. A red glow emanates from the sign. At this time, Lin Kai is having dinner and notes that today is a great day. Ant puts a piece of meat on his plate and exclaims he should eat more. He shouldn't save her money. But he looks somewhere back, and his aunt calls out to him, Kai Yi. He immediately turns around and asks, what? Then he sheepishly says, yes, he understood everything. Then the ant puts a piece of meat back on Zhao Kai's plate and says that there is also a lot of jin. He is growing, so he must eat as much as possible. But she immediately calls out to him too, Zhao Kai. He asks again, what is it? She looks at him with affection and notes, when did the children become so absent-minded? Does he not like her cooking anymore? But Zhao Kai immediately starts eating quickly and exclaims, not at all. He will eat everything right now. Suddenly, Lin Kai starts looking around again and asking where the little black kitten went. Ant points to the balcony and says, it's there. Kai Yi goes out onto the balcony and, stroking the kitten with a smile, asks, what is it? Did it see something on the street? Then Lin Kai also looks down and is very surprised. After that, he runs to the front door and shouts to his aunt that he urgently needs to go somewhere. Zhao Qingcheng clicks the lighter and lights a cigarette. He blows smoke out of his mouth and remarks that he never thought it would come out of him. In front of him stands a huge monster enveloped in green. Qingcheng says that the captain will be angry. It never occurred to him that the Phantom King could inflict such serious wounds on him. It seems that during rainy weather, the monster becomes stronger, and if the monster was able to wound him so seriously, then his strength had definitely increased. The monster starts coming towards him, and he thinks that he doesn't know what to do. But then the monster comes close to him, and he decides that all he can do is use everything he has. At this moment, Qingcheng jumps up and strikes the monster several times. The Phantom King screams in pain, but no serious injuries occur. Zhao Qingcheng exclaims, it's not working. He realizes that his sword did not leave even a scratch on the monster. Why do they have such a difference in strength? He clenches his teeth tighter from tension, and at that moment, the monster throws him away with his hand. He screams in surprise, then lands on the ground. Spitting blood to the side, he is surprised, is the monster not bad? Then he puts his sword forward and adds, yes, not bad, for some kind of mystical creature. The Phantom King abruptly begins to growl loudly, and a purple glow emanates from this. Qingcheng sees this and looks at it in bewilderment and exclaims, what? A purple image of a monster appears on the ground, and Zhao Qingcheng understands, is this a forbidden ruin? He remembers that this is the forbidden ruin of his encounter with the Phantom King. This ruin will allow the monster to deceive the perception of beings that are in the realms below the host or equals by changing the concept of space. Suddenly, Zhao Qingcheng begins to lose his balance, and the space around him begins to change. He also exclaims in surprise, no. Suddenly, the Phantom King sharply hits him with his paw, first one and then a second time. But suddenly Qingcheng finds strength and gets up. He firmly believes that if this continues, he will definitely die here. With these words, he takes the sword that was stuck on the floor and prepares to attack. Zhao Qingcheng closes his eyes and takes a deep breath. He then adjusts to stabilize and wonders where the monsters are attacking from. He squeezes his eyes tightly, then turns around and strikes the monster. The Phantom King also responds to his attack and throws him aside. Qingcheng, holding the sword, asks the monster, well, he was surprised, right? Even though the Phantom King also has a forbidden ruin, it is not at all comparable to human ruins. If the monster's ruin had been even a little stable, he would have died right there. Then Zhao clutches the sword tighter in his hand and continues, it's a pity that it's raining today. He tries to attack the monster again and says that it might be tricking him. But the rain will not deceive him. He continues to strike the Phantom King and says that this may consider him to have the advantage. If he also had a forbidden ruin, he would die as many as 800 times. Suddenly, Qingcheng strikes and realizes that his sword is stuck. He gets scared, but suddenly the Phantom King throws him aside. He falls to the ground and hits hard. He hears someone calling him Zhao Qingcheng. Hey, suddenly, he remembers how the man on stage handed him a badge. He explained that this is a symbol of the Night's Watch, the key to the final, deadly move. The badge contains a ghostly spiritual mentor. It burns away all of a person's vitality in exchange for a significant improvement in spiritual power. If he doesn't have the forbidden ruins, this thing will cause his body to awaken. but the use of the badge would mean the end of his life, so he can only use it as a very last resort. Zhao Qingcheng stands up and, holding the thing in his hand, realizes that the time has come. Someone's scream is heard from outside the portal. Zhao Qingcheng. Zhao Qingcheng. Lin Kai insistently shouted that he knew he was there. He must open this space and let him in. Kai Yi stood outside and knocked hard on the sign that is the door, shouting, Zhao Qingcheng. But Qingcheng shouted back at him. He was sure that he did not finish his dinner. So why did he run out into the street? He must go back. He has to get out of here. But Lin Kai asked irritably, why does he even care? Did he feel like he was his father? He knows that Qingcheng has locked himself away with the Phantom King, so that's why he should let him in. He will help him. At this time, Zhao Qingcheng is next to the wall separating them and shouts, does he even understand what he is saying? This is not some minion, but the Phantom King. 2 kingdoms higher than him. He's just a high school student. He decided to die an inglorious death. Zhao Qingcheng stands up and adds, and besides, isn't he afraid of death? He's definitely afraid of dying. So why does he want to do this right now? He must return home to his family. He can tell them to prepare one portion for him too, but Kai Yi must leave the monster to him. Zhao Qingcheng puts his sword forward and says menacingly that he must remember his words. As long as he, Zhao Qingcheng, is alive, this freak will never harm his family. At this moment, Lin Kai is still trying to break through and shouts that he is right. He does not want to die, but he owes it to him. Does he want to become his hero? Does he want him to let him die like this? Never. Then Kai Yi tries to open the passage and hits the sign with his feet. He also screams. Qingcheng said that they should prepare for him too. He wants noodles, right? Then he should let him in. And not together, kill this monster and then return home, and he will treat him to an unforgettable dinner. Zhao Qingcheng suddenly flies towards the wall and, hitting hard, insists that he doesn't even have to try. His efforts are in vain. He will not be able to break through the ring airspace. If he can't figure out such a simple thing, does he think that the Phantom King will be enough for him? Lin Kai hears Qingcheng shouting from outside that if he wants to go so much, then he only has one option. He should wait until Qingcheng dies. Hearing this, Lin Kai hits the sign with all his might, and suddenly the glow around it disappears and a squeak is heard. He grits his teeth in frustration and looks at the sign. On the other side, Zhao Qingcheng also notices this and wonders, has he left? Afterwards, he takes off his glove and notes, correct. Good guy. He must go home and eat to his heart's content. At this time, Zhao Qingcheng takes the badge and announces a message to the entire night watch. With these words, he presses on the badge and a thin needle suddenly protrudes from it. He sharply pokes it in the neck and adds, he uses this badge. Suddenly, his eyes light up with a red glow, and he furiously wonders how long he's been waiting for this. A small wound remains on his neck, from which a thin stream of blood flows. But Zhao Qingcheng suddenly picks up speed and uses the forbidden ruin of the flickering moon. Qingcheng prepares to strike. He then uses his sword and, with a sharp movement, cuts off the monster's hand. It falls to the ground, and he nearly sighs. Then he laughs and exclaims, he knew it. He, Zhao Qingcheng, is a real genius. The ghostly king reaches out to him, but a red circle with inscriptions appears around Qingcheng. Then he also strikes, fragments fly off the sides, and the monster loses one leg and screams in surprise. Zhao Qingcheng sees this and smiles, but suddenly he grabs Xiangnan and realizes that there is not much time left. He needs to deal with the Phantom King as soon as possible. Hearing this, the Phantom King howls loudly. Zhao Qingcheng gets up and shouts at him to prepare for death. Then he activates the forbidden rune. The monster sees this and also heads towards him. But when they collide, Zhao Qingcheng uses the shimmering moon ruins. He quickly gives the Phantom King several blows, causing it to howl loudly. Zhao Qingcheng starts running towards the monster and shouts at him to prepare to die. He then activates the forbidden rune. The monster sees Qingcheng and also starts running towards him. When they collide, Qingcheng uses the shimmering moon ruin. He strikes the monster several times in an instant, and it screams loudly. Zhao Qingcheng concentrates on punching, but suddenly the Ghost King hits him and he flies to the side. From the monster's blow, he flies head over heels on the ground, turning over several times, eventually falling to the ground. The monster sees this and rejoices, but suddenly scratches appear on his hand, from which a red glow emanates. Suddenly, his hand falls into pieces. Zhao Qingcheng sees this and notes with a smile that everything is fair now. They only had one hand left. Qingcheng coughs and realizes that he no longer feels pain. He gets up and notes that he didn't die, he can still use the forbidden ruin. So he must fight to the end. He is alive, and he has no right to die. He can't fall on his face. Suddenly, there is a small explosion, and Zhao Qingcheng turns around in surprise and asks how he got in. Lin Kai appears and straightens his hair, explains, he glared at the pillar and space opened up. He explains that he was lucky that, as darkness fell, the Starry Night Dancer's skill activated. He couldn't have come at a better time. Only then did Seraphim's divine power manage to break through the ringed airspace. Although they wasted some effort, he got inside. Anyway, he came here to help Zhao Qingcheng. Qingcheng's answer is new and tells him not to talk nonsense. He must stay behind him. Lin Kai insists, but he can help him. Suddenly, he sees Zhao Qingcheng's body like an X-ray. He notes, in shock, that he has serious injuries. All his bones are cracked. But Qingcheng does not pay attention to this and holds the sword and says that he must attack the Ghost King again. Now he will bring his last cut. After that, he will not be able to help him in any way. Kai Yi looks at him with tears and says nothing. Zhao Qingcheng finally says that if he respects him, then he should take care of his sword. This sword is very beautiful. With these words, he swings his arms. The monster also rushes to attack, but suddenly Zhao Qingcheng uses a flickering light from the Forbidden Ruin and instantly finds himself behind the Ghostly King. The monster's head flies off and falls straight to the ground. Immediately after this, Qingcheng sighs heavily and falls to the ground. Lin Kai sees this and immediately runs up to him and exclaims, "His body. He's dying." But Zhao Qingcheng reassures him, everything is fine, he knows. He doesn't regret anything, because his dream came true. He felt the full power of possession of the Forbidden Ruin, which he had never had. He did this even while facing the inevitable abyss. He stained the sky with the blood of the enemy. Qingcheng flicks the lighter and lights the cigarette, putting it in his mouth. With a smile on his face, he asks if Kai Yi has seen. Did he see it? He killed this Ghost King in one fell swoop. Lin Kai sits next to him and answers, yes, he saw. He saw everything. Then Zhao Qingcheng continues, even his captain cannot defeat the Phantom King. And then he killed it with one blow. He then adds with a laugh that, after such a major achievement, if he manages to survive, he will definitely become the leader of the vanguard. Lin Kai Yi immediately exclaims that he will. This is definitely going to happen. Kai Yi then calls out to him, Zhao Qingcheng. He hasn't become the leader of the squad yet, so he has no right to die. But Qingcheng just looks up and asks, is his sword beautiful? Kai Yi liked his skills. Lin Kai exclaims with tears in her eyes, yes, the sword is beautiful, amazing. His skills are also amazing. He wants to be just like him. But the cigarette falls on the floor, and Kai Yi realizes that Zhao Qingcheng has died. At this moment, a knock is heard from the monster's skull, and then a red spider crawls out. Lin Kai Yi is near the body of Zhao Qingcheng and says, finally, Qingcheng was mistaken. He was never afraid of death. For as long as he could remember, he had been a blind child imprisoned in a mental hospital. Will such a person be afraid of death? Every time darkness fell, he tried to commit suicide many, many times. But the light of hope saved him again and again. And the light that saved him was his family. He owes it to him for the rest of his life. His fate is in his hands. He protected the world and saved his world. With these words, he takes the badge and places it under Qingcheng's arm. Then he asks, what can he do for him? How can he repay him? At this moment, there is a large monster behind Lin Kai. Kai Yi decisively takes the Qingcheng sword and pulls it out of the ground. He turns around, his eyes glowing bright yellow. The monster hisses, and in an instant, he strikes him many times using the Starry Night Dancer Ruin. Then he swings his sword and sticks it into the big red spider, exclaiming that it has a disgusting face. But the blow does not cause any harm to the monster, and he wonders if they have a big difference in their kingdoms. Kai Yi does not despair and shouts that if he cannot kill it with one blow, he will cut it dozens, hundreds of times. With these words, he attacks the monster with all his might. Many cuts appear on the spider, and it explodes. Lin Kai continues to shout that he will cut it until his soul goes to the next world. At this moment, he plunges the sword straight into the monster. The monster begins to fall back, and Kai Yi, with a loud scream, stabs the knife even harder. A bright beam of light appears from the wound, and Lin Kai is thrown back. The monster explodes, and all that remains is a skeleton. Kai Yi comes over, takes the sword, and takes it out. Then he suddenly sighs and realizes that he almost died. His physical and spiritual strength are at their limits. He tightly grips the sword, and looking towards Zhao Qingcheng, he notes, if he had not exhausted the Ghost King in the previous battle, he would not have had a chance against this Hulk. Afterwards, he ties the sword on his back with a red thread and realizes that he feels wine only in front of 3 people in his life, in front of his aunt, who worked for him for 10 years, and his cousin, whom he humiliated for the same 10 years. He then picks up Qingcheng's body and says he protected his family at the cost of his own life. Qingcheng's body hangs heavily from the shoulder of Kai Yi's lamp, and he clenches his teeth and thinks he saved his entire world in exchange for his own life. Now, to repay him, he will defend for 10 years the world that was so dear to him, for which he fought, for their planet. Suddenly, the Night Watch runs out to meet him, and the man shouts that they have found more. They stop, and he exclaims in horror, it can't be. Kai Yi announces that he has brought the general and the leader of the squad, Zhao Qingcheng. At this time, it is raining outside, and Aunt Kai Yi sighs sadly. Zhao Kai says they should eat, but the aunt is upset and says that she can't. His brother just ran away during dinner. Why hasn't he returned yet? Nothing happened to him. Zhao Kai reassures her she shouldn't worry, his brother will be fine. He's already an adult, right? He is confident that his brother will create a personal business. Auntie replies with a weak smile, she hopes everything is fine. Yes, he has already matured. The next day, the weather was nice and sunny outside. People are traveling on business, and everything in the city is as usual. Someone asks Lin Kai, is he the one old Zhao was looking for? Agent Seraphim, Lin Kai. He answers with a frown, that's right. He had already made it abundantly clear that Zhao Kingcheng had opened the ring airspace. Until the very end, he fought the Ghost King alone. He died, but at the same time, he took the Phantom King to his grave. Wu Xiangnan, deputy captain of the 136th Night Watch Squad in Kangnan City, carefully looking at a piece of paper, asks how did he manage to get inside the ring airspace. Lin Kai explains that he just looked at it with a fierce gaze, and it let him in. The man looks at him in surprise and asks if he can describe in detail the battle that took place. How exactly did Zhao Kingcheng kill the Phantom King? Kai Yi gestures and explains that he swung his sword, carving a crescent moon in the air. Thus, he cut off the Phantom King's head. Xiangnan clarifies, crescent. The man sitting at the table suddenly stands up, slams his hands on the table, and exclaims, yes, it was the flickering moon. Old Zhao used the power of ghosts and spirits to activate the Forbidden Ruin. Another squad member turns around and clarifies, sequence 83 flickering moon. It is very risky to use these forbidden ruins. Hong Ying says with regret, who would have thought that Uncle Zhao would awaken the ban on the ruins at such a desperate moment? The man who was sitting at the table thoughtfully said, it seems to him that even after awakening from the ruin, Kingcheng couldn't believe it. He remembers how Kingcheng said, if he had the forbidden ruin, he could do a lot. After Ying adds, he would be so proud of this ruin as his only and beloved child. He would appreciate and idolize it. A girl from the Night's Watch begins to cry, and a man in a mask also closes his eyes with sadness. Xiangnan clutches a piece of paper in her hand. Suddenly, a man puts his hand on his back and says, okay, they shouldn't just stand there. Each of them must introduce themselves. Wu Xiangnan then announces that he is the deputy captain of the 136th Division of the Night's Watch in Kangnan City. The guy behind him is Captain Chen Mui. When she introduces herself and says that she is the vanguard of the 136th Detachment of the Night's Watch, another man also scratches his head with a smile and says he is the vanguard of the 136th Detachment of the Night Watch, Hong Ying's assistant. When Chemo, the other girl wipes her tears and compliments, she is in charge of combat support, she is a military doctor, Zai Zionan. The masked man also introduces himself and says that he is the long-range fire support, Len Xuan. Wu Xiangnan then announces that this is not all. Traces of burns were found on the face of the Phantom King's corpse, the origin of which they never found out. But suddenly the skull can announce, okay, the questions about Zhao Kingcheng are exhausted. With these words, he puts a chair in front of the table and, sitting down, says, it's time to talk about him. Leaning towards Lin Kai, Mui asks why he wants to join the Night's Watch. Lin Kai responds to repay Zhao Kingcheng for what he did for him. Before his death, he made him a promise that he would join the Night's Watch for exactly 10 years. In exactly 10 years, he will leave. Hearing this, Wu Xiangnan adjusts his glasses and clarifies that he doesn't understand something. The Night Watchman is not some kind of community volunteer. Once someone joins them, he can no longer leave them. Everyone is with them until the end. So, what he is talking about leaving now depends only on his capabilities. Then Kai Yi is suggested, okay, in this case, if in 10 years he doesn't have enough of what you will, that will be his problem. Xiangnan responded to Kai Yi's words with his silence, and Mui grinned and replied, okay. In this case, he already registers his application for entry. Training will begin a month after the application is accepted. The Night Watch is a paramilitary organization. Before new recruits officially join, they must take part in mandatory training camp exercises. This is how they learn martial arts, firearms, tactics, mastery of forbidden runes, and other skills. Until training begins, he will only be considered a temporary member of the patrol. You can consider him to be an intern. Kai Yi replied, this is exactly what he wants. Suddenly, Mui noted that they do not pay for interns' room and board. Kai was surprised by this information and asked again, they don't pay. But where do they offer him to live for a whole month? Hanan approached him, touched his shoulder and said with a benevolent look that he didn't have to worry about it. Since he could live with her for a while, she had a big house and there would be enough room for two. She continued to persuade him with her hand on her heart. Brother Kai, he shouldn't worry about this. He is already almost a member of their squad, so sister will take care of him. He smiled and thanked her for the offer, after which Akimo approached him, who hugged him and asked Hongan not to scare the newcomer like that. He invites him to go and show him everything. She shouted back at him with irritability that it was so unfair. They walked along a long corridor. Kimo walked ahead and turned to Kai Yi, saying that he had a strange request. Kai Yi looked at him questioningly and he turned around sharply and asked in an emotional outburst, grabbing him by the shoulders, could he go with him to live in the Hongying house? He had long dreamed of living with her. Kai Yi was dumbfounded, after which Kimo laughed loudly, hugged him and said that he was just joking, he shouldn't be so nervous. He just wanted to say that if he had questions, he could ask them now. Kai Yi smiled back at him and thought about the fact that this guy seemed to him to be a very serious person. They began to climb the stairs and Kai Yi asked the question, then why are there only 6 of them? Simo was alarmed by this question. He was surprised and answered him that he very quickly understands everything that is happening and notices such insignificant details. Kai replied, following him before he came to them in person. It seemed to him that the Night Watch was some kind of large organization, that they had planes, tanks parked at a forbidden military base. They went onto the roof. The Simo answered him by opening the doors. He was mistaken. The Night Watch does not belong to the army. He thought that they were an organization subordinate to the authorities. Yes, this is not bad, but such bulkiness has one huge drawback. This is the lack of mobility. He gives an example. Right now a mythical creature has appeared, for example, in the city of Cannon. After local confirmation, a message about this is sent to the military base, to the general headquarters, and there they must figure out who to send on this mission. At least 2 people are needed to prepare for departure on this mission. Kai reflected and added to his sayings, and during this time many people may die. Simo noted exactly that. Therefore, the best solution for their organization was to place several detachments of night watchmen in each city. When traces of mythical creatures are discovered in a city, those stationed in this team directly react and deal with it. Their Unit 136 is located in Kangnan City. Simo replied, then now he understands why they have a clear division of labor in their squad. Everyone is responsible for what they are really strong at. Simo replied, this is true, from combat support to the vanguard, each member of the squad has their own strengths. They add up and the total is an ideal combat squad, and if the team located in the city does not cope, then the team members will immediately send a message to reinforcements will arrive in the city, a special forces detachment. In addition to the detachments located in each city, there are 4 special forces units operating in the country. When a situation arises that the local Night Watch cannot handle, they call for support. But all members of the Night Watch have 5 human streams. Kai had never heard of this and asked again, human ceilings. Simo showed him 5 fingers and answered, yes, this is a weapon, a body, a cavalry, heaven, a teacher. After some time, Kai, with a piece of paper in his hands and a backpack on his back, walked along a cozy street, saying, this should be here. He looked at the majestic house, which was surrounded by a high fence, looked at it with surprise and wondered if she was really that rich. She told him that her house was a little big. He repeated her words in his thoughts with bewilderment. He decided to press the bell button and the gate opened. He kept thinking, is the house a little big? Yes, this is an incredibly huge house. Hong Ying put on cute slippers and a dressing gown and ran down the stairs, repeating that she was on her way. She opened the doors, grabbed his hand and asked, Brother Kai, did he still decide to come to her? He answered, looking at her, yes. She started to lead him into the room and told him that he should forgive her. She didn't have time to clean today, so it might be a little messy, but he shouldn't mind that. He should get himself a pair of slippers and change his shoes. She handed him the same cute slippers as hers and said, wow, this suits her. Suddenly another blonde girl began to come down from the stairs. This is Zai Onion, the night watchman. She came down and wondered, Sister Hong Ying. Kai decided to come after all. He saw her and asked again, is she here too? Hong Ying started pushing him up the stairs and said, Sionin doesn't like living in the dormitory, so she let her stay with her for a while. Should they go, will she show him to his room? He pointed his finger to the side and asked where her parents were. Is this even normal? Doesn't he bother them? She replied that they were not there. They joined the research group and disappeared 5 years ago in the fog. Kai frowned after such news and did not answer. They climbed to the 2nd floor. Hong Yin showed him the room and said that she had already prepared everything for him. Blue terry towels and body care accessories are ready in the bathroom, but he shouldn't confuse her products with his own. He looked at the bright, spacious room and replied, okay. After that, she pointed her finger at him and said, by the way, if he needs her or Zionin, then before entering their rooms, he should knock on the door. She says this just in case. And if she finds out that if he has any indecent intentions towards them, then she will threaten him. He should also not forget that she is the main fighting force of their squad. She is the vanguard. Let him look at her biceps. Is he already scared? Did he understand everything? He stood silently and looked at her, after which he scratched the back of his head and replied that he understood everything. By the way, Sister Hong Ying, does she have paper and pen? She looked at him questioningly and asked why he needed this. After some time, Mu and Kimo arrived in Kai's multi-story building where his aunt was staying. They rang the doorbell and opened the doors and asked with a smile, Zio Kai, is he back? Kimo asked her a question after greeting her, is this Miss Wang Feng who is Lin Kia's guardian? She immediately asked a counter question, who are they? Kimo stopped Mu, who said that they were from the military political department of Kangnan City, and Kimo added on his own that they were responsible for recruiting recruits to the army. Aunt was scared and asked again, call. He handed her the document and she wondered, joining the army. But why? They came to the kitchen and the aunt started screaming, why would her nephew suddenly decide to join the army himself? He didn't tell her about this. Kai, who came home, said, no, brother has already mentioned this. Aunt turned to him with a questioning look and asked again, did that really happen? Kai replied, yes, when they were alone, he said that his main dream was to join the army, but due to the fact that his eyesight was completely lost, he gave up on it. Tears appeared in the aunt's eyes. She covered her mouth and spoke, looking at the document, but this was too unexpected. He just got his sight and he just went there right away. What if everything returns to normal and he loses his sight again? Chemo told her that she shouldn't worry about it. They had done a detailed examination of Lin Kai's eyes, there would be no more problems. She exhaled and replied, "What a relief it is." After which Mui handed her a paper envelope with money and said, "Madam, this is a subsidy for Lin Kai to join the army, please, she must accept it." She was very surprised and asked again, "But isn't there too much money here?" Chemo replied that she was right, but relatively recently new policies had been introduced to improve the welfare of soldiers, so Lin Kai was also included in this list and was entitled to more special subsidies. She was surprised by this information and asked again, "Is there a special subsidy? Is he involved in something dangerous?" She grabbed his hand and started shouting, "Where is his military unit? It is far from here. It's cold there. Is he really safe? Maybe he's not used to the military sphere. How long will it take? Can she call him?" Simo was taken aback by the number of questions asked and uncomfortably said, "Yes, yes and yes, okay, miss, it's time for them to leave." They left the house and approached Kai. Chemo said, taking a deep breath, how tired he was of the dialogue with her, stronger than from completing a task. Mui spoke back, but she believed in everything and accepted the money. Kai replied, "That's great." Mui walked past him and said, this was his annual salary, which he asked for in advance. Is he really sure that he should have given her every single yuan? He answered with a smile on his face, yes, he is sure of it. He himself had been saving money for some time. This amount would be enough for him for a year. Mui touched his shoulder and said, if this is so, then he is calm, he can come to the office for dinner. Kai asked in surprise, isn't room and board included in the price? The guys waved to him and said, leaving him, that room and board are not included in the price. But this applies to dishes that they prepare themselves. Kai looked at them questioningly, was silent for a moment, and suddenly they left in a car. Kai took the phone, called his aunt and said that it was him. She screamed into the phone and asked him, baby, why didn't he tell her he was going to become a soldier? He knows she wouldn't stop him. So why didn't he at least warn her? He replied that he was sorry, he was wrong. After some time, Kai again found himself in his dream, where Nukta was riding on a swing in the yard with her legs tied and a joyful face. He approached her in a white coat and held a bottle of medicine in his hand. She looked at him, upside down, and said, so it's him. He came to see her, her child. He smiled back at her, showed her a bottle of medicine and said, yes, and now it's time to take the medicine. He poured several tablets into his hand and asked, does she remember that when she finishes taking the course of medication, all her children will return? She ate a few pills, swallowed it, and Kai sat on the swing with her and began to sway a little. She handed him a mug of liquid and asked, her child, does something seem to be bothering him? He accepted the mug and spoke with caution, yes. Then she decided to give him a gift. He asked again, is it a gift? She pointed her fist at him and replied, yes, she will give him her bracelet, and if he wears it, then she will always be there for him. As she straightened her arm, she looked at it questioningly and began looking around, wondering where her bracelet had gone. Kai silently lowered his gaze. After a moment she spoke, sure enough, she remembered. She lost her bracelet. Kai grabbed the swing holder and asked her again, did she lose? Some god won this from her. He took out an encyclopedia of myths and started reading about it. She grabbed the broken vase in her hands and answered him, no, not God, she is the same as him. He was very surprised and shouted to her in shock, does she mean that someone else was here before her and took her bracelet? He looked into the distance and with a frightened expression on his face began to wonder if it could be that he was not the only visitor here. Were there really other people here 5 years ago? He started asking her questions, does she remember what she looked like? Nukta replied that she remembers a girl of 12 or 13 years old with long black hair, she was very beautiful. There is a strange pattern here. He asked her a question, how exactly did she win the bracelet from her? Was this some kind of dispute? She answered, lowering her gaze, that she told her that she wanted to try her luck and if she lost, she would give her her child, and if she lost, she would give her bracelet. Kai looked away and thought, did the little girl defeat the powerful goddess of the night who created the whole world? Does she remember anything about her? At least her name? Nukta looked to the side thoughtfully and answered, yes, it seems like Jai. He realized that after that girl had been here, there should have been some clues left, but where could he find it? He started going through all the cabinets and looking around at all the things, and suddenly, seeing something under the table, he realized that's what it is. It was a piece of paper that was stuck to the floor under the table. He grabbed it and realized that it was some kind of letter. The letter contained disgusting handwriting. The girl explained that there is no need to laugh at her handwriting, she is still a child. She borrowed one thing from the patient, but there is no need to worry about it. Because she will return it back soon, the reader should pay attention to an important place under the hospital, you definitely need to check it out. When she grows up, she will definitely come back and they will definitely be able to meet, because the person who read it is her hope to return home. Kai understood, of course there are still many secrets hidden in this mental hospital. He got up from his seat and began to go down to the basement. It was very dark there. He was dumbfounded by the terrifying view and wondered if there was a cage here. But there's no one here and it's just an abandoned cell. He stopped next to one of the cages, looked behind the bars and with incredible fear realized something. Behind the cage he saw a huge shining monster sitting on a stone tile. He looked at it with fear and wondered, is this the Ghost King? The Ghost King ran sharply to the bars and tried to break through it and reach Kai himself with his long claws, who managed to dodge and wondered what this monster was doing here. The system window says he has the power and determines the fate of the souls of the mythical creatures he killed, such as this ghostly king. Option 1 is to directly destroy the soul of this creature and completely erase it from the world. Option 2, make it afraid of him. When the fear value reaches 60, he can hire it as an assistant to his hospital and it will take care of the patients and ensure their protection. The current fear value is 1. Kai looked away and said, so this is what it means. He remembered the fight against many monsters and began to think that, in addition to the mysterious patients, this mental hospital has the ability to capture other people's souls. As long as the slain mythical creatures are kept here, they can be accepted as assistants into the hospital. Then the mythical creatures that are here are mentioned. Could there be gods in their place? If he kills the true god, will he be able to make him work for him? The monster continued to make its way through the cage and growl loudly. King's eyes glowed with a bright light and he looked at the monster with a piercing gaze. A moment later, the monster bowed its head and knelt down, and Kai was surprised by this and asked the question, does the monster even understand what situation it is in now? He extended his hand to the monster and said, this is a very strong creature, so choosing this as your assistant would be a good idea. He touched the monster's head and said, it's just a pity that he's not welcome here. After these words, the monster's blood seeped out. Kai continued to overpower this creature with his magical powers. A bright flash of light appeared, and Kai said, this is happening in his hospital. A moment later the monster was destroyed and fell exhausted. The body of this creature began to crumble into several bright pieces and split. The next day, Kai entered the room and heard a woman screaming that she had met a monster. These words alerted him. He opened his mouth in surprise, and Hong Ying asked the woman, is it a monster? He began to climb the stairs and approached the door where these sounds were coming from. Hong Ying asked, is this some kind of mythical creature? The woman screamed back in fear, yes. She is afraid that now she will tell them everything, and they will not believe her. He looked through the crack of the door and continued to follow their conversation, gradually beginning to penetrate inside the room. Hong Ying asked the woman not to worry and promised that she would believe whatever she told her. The woman clenched her hand into a fist and, in an emotional outburst, continued to scream, but then let her tell everything. The matter concerns her husband. The whole time they were together, she was confident in him, but Hong Ying was interrupted by a woman who asked her not to worry and to speak more slowly. Behind Hong Ying stood a chemo who listened attentively to the woman. She started screaming. Recently they were walking around the city. He held her hand, they talked and everything was fine. There was a look of embarrassment on her face, but she kept talking and he hadn't shown any signs the week before. Hong Ying smiled and told her, everything is fine, Grandma, she can continue further. The woman grabbed her hand, squeezing her hand tightly and finally screamed, but then this seductress jumped out from the corner, at least with a 4th breast size. This made Hong Ying laugh and the woman spoke and he fell for her breasts. Kai finally entered the room and was dumbfounded by such an unpleasant conversation. Chemo walked up to the woman to see her off, and Hong Ying stood up from her chair and asked this woman not to worry anymore since their company would take care of everything. The old lady waved her hand and the Simo made the same gesture in response and wished her well. Kai came closer to Hong Ying and asked in bewilderment, what was that just now? She looked towards the exit and asked him what. It's a regular job. Chemo appeared at the door, walked up to them and said, spreading his arms, Kai, he's a newbie, so he probably doesn't know, but in Kangnan City there are only about 5 or 6 real mysterious incidents a year. On ordinary days, they help ordinary citizens deal with everyday issues, so that he can not only find activities that he likes, but also earn extra money on every little thing, and if he is lucky, then someday he will shut up about this very mystical incident. Is not that great? Kai asked them with a worried look, so they usually investigate something like the extramarital affairs of an old man and an old lady. Hong Ying put her hand on his shoulder, took a deep breath, and answered, mostly yes. He exhaled and answered, okay. She looked at him and said, by the way, the captain asked him to go to his martial arts training ground. He thought about something and answered, okay. After that, I went down the stairs to the captain, who was sitting in the lotus position in a special robe. He heard his steps and asked if he had already come. Kai replied yes, and a moment later he caught the sword that was thrown to him. Mui informed him that he would not be given a sword, a cloak, or a coat of arms, but it would be until he entered full training. He could take advantage of that first. Kai saw the inscription on the sword that was thrown to him. It was written there that it belonged to Zhao. A trembling ran through his body and he said, this is a Zhao sword. Mui said, getting up from his seat, that he was one of the few who liked him. He thinks that he would like his sword to go to him. Kai remained silent in response to these words and Mui spoke, There was more than a month left before the start of the training camp. During this time he will teach him a thing or two. Well, this is so that you don't have to blush with shame for him. From now on, every morning he will teach him how to use a sword. During the day he will study the Forbidden Ruins with Wen Kimo, and in the evening the remaining weapons with Len Xuan. He stopped opposite him and with a menacing look announced that they were starting. Kai shouted, "Captain, but they have real swords." A bright light lit up in his eyes. He grabbed 2 swords in his hands and said, "It doesn't matter what they will train with." Kai became alert and shouted back. Then he would try to be more careful. A moment later, he gritted his teeth, shouted loudly and rushed into battle. Suddenly there was an explosion, many boxes fell to the floor, Kai was attacked, he screamed loudly, blood splashed out of his mouth and he landed on the boxes. When he opened his eyes, he saw the end of a red sword in front of him, which the Mui pointed at him. He also stopped right in front of him and looked at him with keen, bright red eyes, after which he shouted to him to get up. Kai gritted his teeth and tried to get up. At that moment Kai heard a loud sound behind him, someone screaming, "More." He turned back with caution and the screams continued. After some time, a lot of medical supplies were laid out on the table. Kai sat on the bench and held his head with one hand. Simo bandaged his hand and said that it looks like he has talent. During his first training, the captain beat him like a helpless baby. The captain's skills are terrifying. His swings are both too fast and too heavy. He shouted at him with a menacing look, but this is the most ordinary training. After that, he struck at him, which the Simo tried to hold with his sword, but could not stand it and a bright flash of light pierced the entire area. Kai shouted, so that's why he beat him so hard. Such heavy blows were dealt to him. He didn't feel a shred of his mercy. Simo agreed with him and said in addition, "Now the only one who can at least minimally withstand the captain is Hong Ying." Kai asked how Zhao Kencheng dealt with this. He remembered him, imagined their faces opposite each other, and said he and the captain were on the same level. Kai lowered his gaze and replied, he thought so. Simo continued to say that the small abrasions all over his body will go away when he sleeps well, and tomorrow he will go there again and they will beat him again. PE lesson is over, it's time to start discussing his forbidden ruin. How advanced is his mortal god realm? Kai raised his hand and said, in short, he senses literally everything within a radius of 20 meters. Simo into the distance and spoke with caution, that's how. Hanan approached them and walked past them, and the guys looked at her appearance from behind and silently looked at each other. After which Kai spoke, white. Simo gave him a thumbs up and they shook hands. After that, they continued to walk around the building. Simo picked up the book and said, well, now he offers to explain to him what exactly the Forbidden Ruin is. This is the so-called division of the level of danger of people. The higher the sequence, the more dangerous the person. Anything beyond 600 is classified as a harmless Forbidden Ruin. It is of no use, but it can kill a fly at most. Sequence 400 to 599 is identified as a low-risk Forbidden Ruin. At this level you can kill someone, but more often than not it ends with severe injuries. From 200 to 399, the Forbidden Ruins can be called dangerous. They pose a large-scale threat to human society and can be used to fight mythical creatures. Forbidden Ruins with a high level of risk is a sequence from 90 to 199, very high combat effectiveness. There's a 1 in a million chance that their captain is one of those people. For the super high-risk Forbidden Ruins, that's everyone who enters up to 89. This level has large-scale lethality, but also incredible special abilities. The people with these Forbidden Ruins have gone beyond the category of people. They alone are capable of destroying the city. If Zhao Kencheng awakened 83, the flickering moon, perhaps he would become a general. Kai lowered his gaze. Kimo flipped through the book and said, his Forbidden Ruin is the realm of a mortal god, sequence 3. Kai asked him again, what did he say? He replied, he should not rejoice ahead of time. 3. This is the Forbidden Ruin of the Flaming Angel, not his, Lin Kai. He is a beginner, he doesn't really know how to do anything, so such a powerful ruin in his hands is good for nothing. Kai asked him again, so he wants to say that he has not fully mastered it. Simo tried to explain to him that his current abilities were focused on perception and prediction. He may be able to use some of the Burning Angel's enormous power, but the power of his Forbidden Ruin is much greater than what he currently has. In other words, either the Flaming Angel gave him only a small grain of his power, or his other abilities are available to him, he just cannot feel them and master them. Kai silently looked at his hand and Kimo justified that this part of his training is necessary for him to gradually use all the abilities of his body. They entered one of the rooms, saw a lot of weapons and the Simo said there were 39,000 miniature air pistols. They can fire 39,000 rubber bullets per second. He needs to use his perception and dynamic vision to avoid all the bullets. He pressed the button on the phone and suggested that given that he was in a low realm, they should start with 50 bullets per second. Kai was stunned by such a figure and asked, wait, why was he overcome by such an ominous feeling? Suddenly he shouted, were his feet glued to the ground or what happened? What should he do and why does he again have thoughts that he should not be here at all? Simo replied that danger would always follow him there. Where there is this, there is fear in any real battle. There is no place where he would have to fight and he would not feel fear at all. He pressed the phone button and shouted, "Beep, they are starting training." He pointed the gun towards Kai. He saw this and opened his mouth in shock, after which he shouted to stop. He began to dodge the bullets, and Kaimo walked towards the exit and shouted back, "He is leaving." The pistol independently began to shoot in different directions, and Kai tried to painlessly dodge the blows. Simo grinned and closed the door on the other side of the room. The bullets bypassed Kai's body, who turned towards the exit and said with relief, "So this is the point of this training." Suddenly he stopped to catch his breath and suddenly saw a bright light from a bullet that flashed right near his ear, which caused him to scream loudly and wonder why he gets beaten up at every training session. Simo heard this cry and smiled, being outside the door. After some time, evening came. Lai Yifei was walking home from school with a backpack. One friend turned to him and asked why he was walking so slowly. He should go faster. He returned from his thoughts to the conversation and said he is already on his way. The guy hugged him and asked what was happening to him. Did he see some killer? Why is he acting like a lost child? He's been suspicious all day long. He is acting too cautiously, clearly afraid of something. Where did his courage go? Yifei was irritated by this question and said through clenched teeth, pushing his hand away, that he could not tell him about it. The guy asked him what he meant by these words. He answered, taking a deep breath. He had already said that he would not tell him anything. He suggests not talking about it. Suddenly something turned his attention to himself. He stopped abruptly, and the guy asked the question, "What's the matter now?" He turned sharply back towards the school, waved his hand at them and informed them that he had forgotten the key. The guys can go without him, he will catch up with them. The other guy said, looking after him carefully, "He is becoming more and more strange every hour." The leaves rustled on the street. Yifei stopped in front of the school and suddenly fear appeared on his face. He looked around and went inside. Entering his class, he walked up to his desk, but suddenly he heard someone's steps and wondered, is someone coming? He stopped outside the door to look down the hallway and saw the principal and math teacher and wondered if it was them. The math teacher grabbed the principal's hand and told him to come to her. He looked at her in bewilderment and Yifei wondered why they came to class. Really? But before he had time to think this thought through to the end, the school staff entered the classroom and the principal asked her, did she need something from him? She blushed at these words and said, "Director, she has been wanting to tell him something for a very long time." While Yifei was lying under the table, he was very surprised by the words spoken and his mouth opened in shock. He did not expect this at all and wondered if the teacher had really fallen in love with the director. Yes, he is already 50 years old. He already has a receding hairline on the top of his head. What kind of taste does she have? The director asked her again, and what? She was dumbfounded and began to say, in fact, she always wanted him. She licked her lips in hot fervor and Yifei peered out from under the table to watch her. At that moment, she turned into a terrifying monster with incredibly huge fangs and screamed that she wanted to eat him. The director was very frightened and screamed loudly in fear. A moment later his blood spilled and she attacked him. Suddenly she noticed Yifei's shaking body under the table and began to crawl closer to him. Her head turned into a snake's, but her body remained as it was. The snake head continued to approach him and after a moment, blood spilled onto the floor. There was a loud scream in the school. It was already night on the street. One of the supporters of Kai, Xuan, explained to him, clearly showing him on paper, a pistol is the material embodiment of human genius. For beginners like him, a weapon is a kind of life insurance. Although this does not cause serious damage to high-level physical creatures, against low-level monsters, firearms are more effective than melee weapons. He offers to show him what he can do. Xuan pressed the timer button and said that he could start. King abruptly began to assemble the weapon and, closing his eyes, thought that he needed to calm down and disassemble every part, and then put it back together, fire 3 shots at one point, and that was all. He finished, smoke came out of his weapon, and 3 shots were fired. He asked Xuan how did he like his skills. Xuan walked up to the target and said, the distance from the acceptable edge is large. He can tell him this, the blind man would have done better. Kai raised his weapon up and thought, actually, he was blind not long ago. He left the office, waved his arms and continued to think, another day of training has passed. He fought the captain again and he beat him once again. But training with a pistol brought him back into shape. He may have liked it, but he has no talent in the weapons field. Suddenly someone called him from afar and asked him to wait. He turned around with surprise and looked at the door of the room where the Mui was, who was holding a vat of food in his hand and asked him why he was standing like an idol. He must go to dinner. He answered him with a smile on his face, okay. Everyone sat down at the table. Xiaonan and Mui sat at the head of the table on different sides. Xiaonan grabbed one dish and said, he took the first one. Hong Ying got angry and shouted in rage, no, she was the first. This piece of meat is hers. Their wands collided and they continued to argue. Mui turned to Kai and said, it's 7 p.m., it's dinner time. Even if he is not used to eating at this time, he should at least eat the stewed vegetables that Uncle Chen prepared. Xiaonan spoke back to him, he is eccentric. Xiangmin continued to ask Hong Ying to let go of his hand with an arrogant expression on his face. She got even angrier and screamed she was ready to lose her hand, just not to let go of her piece. He continued to ask her to let go. She answered him no. They argued for a long time. Lang Xuan should not dare to take out a weapon at the table next time. After some time, King found himself in his bed, took a deep breath, closed his eyes and thought with a smile on his face, this day has finally passed. He lay down on the bed and felt such satisfaction. He remembered how he fought with the captain, who shouted to him he should not hold onto the sword so stubbornly. Otherwise he will not have time to regroup and will not be able to abruptly move from attack to defense. He wondered if he didn't need to hold onto the sword so tenaciously. Yes, he grabbed it even harder and swung it sharply, standing on the bed. He looked into the distance and thought, okay, he'll try again. The next day he went outside with black eyes and said last night he had clearly overdone it. Hong Ying shouted to him from the window, Kai Yi. Finally he has come. They have problems. He went inside and asked what happened. Is it related to mythical creatures? She answered him, yes, everything is very serious. They entered the building and she continued to talk. Information was received about the appearance of a mythical creature and its location. They entered one of the doors and she said, Kangnan Secondary School number 2. He asked again, did it happen there again? When he entered the office, he saw Lai Yifei sitting on a chair and looked at him questioningly. Yifei turned to him and asked, Lin Kai, what is he doing here? Kai Yi replied, he is a temporary member of the Night Watch. Yifei jumped up from his chair and said, who is he telling this to? He's a probationary trainee, so he can't be here. Mui cleared his throat and said that they would talk about their relationship later, but now he suggests moving on to the pressing problem and sorting it out. He rubbed the back of his head and replied, that's right, he asks for forgiveness. Xiangnan looked at the book and said, in short, he remembered that he forgot something and returned to school for it, and then accidentally saw the teacher eat the director. He remembered this with horror, his face turned pale and he said, that's all. But it seems not. Yesterday, on the way home, he remembered that he forgot to take his English homework and went back to school. Then he sat down under the table and tried to catch his breath. He looked out from behind the table and saw a huge snake that was devouring the director and eventually ate him completely, after which it began to head towards him, and a huge white ball appeared from the mouth of this creature. It made a loud sound. Yifei opened his mouth in fear and saw the director inside this ball, who rolled his eyes and was dumbfounded. The monster hissed that he was very tasty and grabbed him by the hand. He was so frightened that he fell into a complete stupor and did not dare to move until they left, but even after they left, he hid in the classroom until dawn and then immediately came to them. Mui reacted to this with his silence, and Simo asked again. She ate it, spat it out, and everything was as if nothing had happened. Hong Ying also looked thoughtful, and suddenly Xiangnan sharply slammed the book and said that he had done the right thing. This mythical creature disguises itself well as people, and can also assimilate others into itself. Mui also spoke out, it is likely that because of this mythical creature, a diffuse infection has spread throughout the school. Wu Xiaonan said that among the lower mythical creatures, assimilation is the most difficult ability. If action is not taken, the number of victims will grow exponentially. Accordingly, the harm they cause will also be significant. And if they have disguise, then the situation becomes critical. This is a very dangerous combination, and besides, the mythical creature has an intellect that is not inferior to that of a human. Such mythical creatures are able to analyze all the memories and their victims, imitate their behavior and even communicate with other people so that no one will notice the difference. So they must prepare for the worst. Hong Ying asked in fear for the worst. Lin Kai adds, the worst outcome is, in this case, he can assume that the entire second school has become infected. The infection has definitely spread beyond the school. Then Wu Xiaonan asks if they thought about the possibility that all their classmates at school would be assimilated by mythical creatures, or even they unknowingly became part of this monster. Lai Yifei looks at him in bewilderment. At that moment, Kimo approaches Xiaonan and, placing his hand on his shoulder with a smile, asks him to stop scaring him. If everything were like this, Disaster Crow would have appeared a long time ago. And since this has not yet been announced, it means that the situation has not reached the point of no return. At this time, Yifei, clutching his head with his hands, repeats in horror, no, this is impossible, he cannot be a monster. Lin Kai is already asking Hong Ying, what is Disaster Crow? She explains that from the name it is clear that it is a crow, and a disaster because she begins to croak loudly throughout the whole city if she senses the approach of a most dangerous catastrophe. Chen Mui thoughtfully says, well, all the cards have been revealed to them. What are Wu Xiaonan's plans? He explains that first, it is extremely important to find the true body of the mythical creature, and at the same time find out exactly how many people were infected with it. So he suggests splitting into two groups. The first group uses social networks and sacrifices to obtain clues. This way they will find out other infected people. The second group will infiltrate the school and will have to track down the monster's true body. After a while, when Kimo held the school uniform in his hands and said, then they can change clothes. Since they're sneaking into school, they should at least live up to the image of high school students. Hong Ying and Zai Zionan looked at the uniform with interest. After wearing this, Ying immediately asked why Kai's school uniform was so ugly. Zionan also tried to fasten the zipper and exclaimed that it was not the right size for her. Lin Kai replied thoughtfully, the girl's uniform would suit them better, but he doesn't have one, so they should forgive him. Suddenly Len Xuan hands him a gun and tells him to take it. Kai reminds him that his weapon skills leave much to be desired. He also asks what if he hurts someone, but Xuan wins at him and clarifies that the point of a weapon is not only to kill. A few moments later, Hong Ying shouts to Kai that he was heading towards them. He hides the gun behind his back and exclaims, "Here he comes." They approach the fence and Hong Ying, along with Zai Zionan, easily jump over it. Then they run towards the school and tell the target that if anything happens, he must contact them using the headset. Lin Kai looks after them and says that he understood everything. Then he starts running and thinks they went to the staff room. There Ying and Zai Zionan will question the director or teachers. Afterwards he remembers that Wu Zionan explained the plan, showing everything on the map. Lin Kai should mingle with the class and make contact with Liu Zioyan. If they want to identify the person who has a true mythical creature hidden in his body, it is very important to control all sensory abilities, and also analyze literally all students. Even the fact of how far the infection has spread will determine their further actions. They must be careful. They don't know how many creatures there are and what they are capable of. Everyone must remember the main task of the group. If they can handle this, they can move on to the next part. Lin Kai runs through the corridors of the school, looking into the classrooms. At the same time he counts 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's not all. Chen Mui asks him through the headset, how are things? He explains that it's not very good, only on one floor there are more than 6 infected people. Xiangnan hears this and repeats in wilderment, 6. Their target is a mythical creature. Students are victims. It is not their fault that they were assimilated, so they must make do with minimal harm. Kai reasons, if there are only about 6 infected people on the first floor, then if we take into account the entire school, then doesn't it turn out that there are a huge number of infected people? Mui simply replies that he must follow the plan and continue to observe. It should also not attract unnecessary attention. Then Lin Kai runs along the corridor and stopping in front of one of the doors says, this. He tries to open the door and upon entering the classroom immediately exclaims, he will explain everything. The teacher sees him and sternly asks why he was absent for so long. Where has he been for the last few days? How can Lin Kai respond to this? But Kai explains that he was in the hospital for 2 weeks with another eye problem. The teacher, hearing this, chuckles and asks him to return to his place. They will continue the lesson. Kai then walks to the place and sees Lai Yifei along the way. He remembers Yifei shouting that he would go with him. He saw the monster, he can show him the way. He then bowed before Chen Mui and exclaimed, in fact, he had long wanted to join them. He wants to become the unsung hero to protect the city. Mui answered without turning to him that if this operation goes well, he will give him a chance. Kai walks into his place and one of the girls turns to follow him with interest. Lin Kai doesn't notice this and puts his backpack on the table and begins to take out things. But suddenly he notices his classmates passing a piece of paper to each other. After that, one of the girls smiles sweetly. After a while the teacher announces that classes are over. Lai Yifei immediately asks Kai what happened yesterday. He holds a book in his hands and explains that he wants the opportunity to get to know the teachers and students throughout the school. Yifei walks up to him and asks him what he means. Kai explains, the next step is the flag-raising ceremony. By then he would be able to sort out the situation with the entire school. 2 pigeons look into the nest and a large moth flies towards them from the side. Hongin asks, is the director here? Zionan pulls the handle and answers, it seems there is no one there. Then Hongin picks up special devices and explains that they can be put on probation for this. She immediately inserts the tool into the keyhole and, with the help of some manipulations, opens the door. Zionan looks inside and asks, director. But no one answers, and then Ying notes, great, that's even easier. Then they need to hurry up and do everything before the director returns. Then she goes inside and, touching the mug, notes that it is still warm, he must have just left. Then she picks up a box of documents and turns to Zionan and says, in any case, they should search this place first, maybe there is some evidence here. Having said this, she suddenly smells something and grunts in surprise, stink. Zhang Ying looks under the table and notes what seems to be the smell from here. Then she pries the tile up with a knife and exclaims in disgust, this. Under the tile she sees a container with liquid and a human face. She exclaims in amazement, is this human skin? Lin Kai and Lai Yifei stand along the stairs and accompany the schoolchildren. Yifei asks Kai how many infected people were actually in their class. Kai explains, 2, Liu Zioan and Han Ruoryuo. Then Lai Yifei clarifies, but now, how many infected people are in this group? Lin Kai looks carefully and answers, the 5th person in front, this girl is also infected. Yaifai explains that she is from the next class, Tian Lai, and lives in the same room as Liu Zioyan and Han Ruoyuo. Kai thinks about it, most of the infected people are girls. Did it really all start in the women's dormitory? Then he immediately transmits over the headset that the source of infection may be in the women's dormitory. Hongin replies that she understood everything, they are going there to investigate. Sometime later during the flag-raising ceremony, Lai Yaifai approaches Kai's lamp and asks him if he has finished checking. He briefly replies that he is not finished. Yaifai then grabs his hand and shouts that the music is about to end. They might get caught. But Yaifai explains that he has an idea. Lin Kai looks at him in surprise and asks what. Then Lai Yaifai approaches the guys who are in charge of the flag and, taking it in his hands, greets him and announces that they are fired. One of the guys wonders what. Lin Kai explains that the school management has urgently notified that outstanding student representatives are to raise the flag and give a speech, so the flag bearer must be temporarily replaced. He, Lai Yaifai, as one of the best second-year students in high school, asks to hand over the flag to him. If they have questions, they can approach the teacher after the flag is raised. The guy tries to object, but in the end agrees. Moments later it was announced that the flag-raising ceremony was about to begin. Lin Kai walked on the stage and the girl in the crowd was surprised. What? This standard bearer is so handsome. He is very similar to Lin Kai. But the guy who stood next to her irritably told her not to talk, the teacher is nearby. Lai Yaifai walked behind Kai and wondered what Kai was up to. At this moment, Lin Kai closed his eyes and thought he had a very bad feeling. Suddenly he turns around and starts walking in the other direction. Yaifai shouts to him in bewilderment, what? What is he doing? This is too much. Another guy yells for everyone to calm down. Then he shouts to Kai that he is going in the wrong direction. Dissatisfied exclamations are heard in the crowd, where is he going? For the first time, something went wrong at the flag-raising ceremony. Lin Kai suddenly starts running away and uses his headset to tell the captain to be ready. Chen Mui asks him to speak calmly. He must report his condition. Lin Kai explains that he checked the entire school, at least 60 students and teachers are infected. Finding a solution is very difficult. Too many of them. Once they start threatening the monster, more than 60 people will attack indiscriminately. If even one of them gets out of school, a disaster will occur that will spread throughout the city. At this time, Mui is fighting a huge snake and asks Kai to calm down. The monsters have already penetrated outside. They checked Liu Zioyan and the director, their families are infected. At that moment, a huge reptile attacks him, but with one swing of his sword he cuts off the monster's head and continues to say that they have just eliminated the infected people who crawled out of these two places. He then hits the snake's head again and adds that the situation is more serious than they thought. Therefore, they will check the social contacts of the infected one by one to stop the spread of the infection. They are temporarily unable to provide support. He provides school for them. The enemy is very cunning this time, so there is no need to give up or hide. They must find the body in the shortest possible time and kill it. He will allow Len Xuan to open No Jai's airspace. The school will become an isolated island so that they can take a chance. At this moment, Lin Kai continues to run and briefly responds that he understood everything. Chen Muyan sheathes his sword and tells Wu Xiangnan that they must now kill the next monster. But Xiangnan asks if the first task for a beginner is not too difficult. Chen Mui explains, this child is different from them. He has potential, heart and tenacity. All they have to do is make a way for him. Then he remembered how during practice, Lin Kai was breathing heavily and shouting that they should not stop. He could hold out for another hour. Mui also says that Kai will be able to rise to the top. At this time, Lin Kai runs to the dormitory and transmits to Hong Ying through the headset that the wound flag raising ceremony is over. There's a big group of girls coming to the dorm. They come over, Hong Ying and Zai Zion and must leave quickly. Hong Yin at this time tries to open the door and asks if all the girls are infected. He explains that he cannot determine, but among them there are definitely infected. They must be careful. At this moment, a large group of girls walks along the corridor. Hong Ying and Zai Zion freeze in the country holding hands. Suddenly two girls notice them and ask in surprise who they are. They don't know them. Are they from a different class? Hong Ying crosses his arms and looks back with a frown. One of the girls greets them and asks what class they are from. Hong Yin explains that she is looking for Wang Nan from class 6, but she doesn't remember which room she lives in. The girl clarifies in confusion, Wang Nan. There isn't one in their class, weren't they mistaken? Another girl also asks, isn't this a senior dorm? At this moment, Hong Ying grabs Zai Zionen's hand and exclaims, so this is it. Then they start to run away and she asks for forgiveness for disturbing her. But suddenly 3 more girls appear in front of them and approach them. One of them tells them not to rush. Afterwards she touches Hong Yin and says with a smile, she didn't know there was such a pretty girl at school. She has such fine features and good skin. She's even jealous. Ian looks at her in surprise and asks what. Then she tries to remove her hands from her face and asks her to stop. At this time, a girl also approaches Zionin and touches her clothes and says that she is also pretty. Zionin looks confused and asks what is this. She then turns to Hongin and asks what should she do. At this moment, the girl sticks out her snake tongue and says that Zionin is very cute. Suddenly she turns into a monster and shouts that she wants to eat Zionin. Zionin looks at the monster in amazement and screams. Ying sees this and tells her to be careful. At this moment she also tries to escape from the hands of another girl, who also turns into a snake and screams for her to let her eat her. The reptile extends its tongue towards Hongin, but she just grins and throws a large case on the ground, which falls and opens. Inside there is a folded spear, which immediately folds. In grabs the spear and flames appear around. She looks to the side and then swings her spear and sets one of the monsters on fire. Then she turns around and notices with horror how two monsters grabbed Zionin. She spins the spear in her hand and then calls out to them. The next moment the monsters burst into flames and scream in pain. After another moment, the snakes burn and die. Hongin grins and pokes his spear at one of the corpses. She notes that the monsters are scary, but not particularly strong. Afterwards, they walk out of the corridor, but suddenly Zionin turns around and, in surprise, asks Hongin to look in the other direction. They turn around and see a girl standing at the end of the corridor with green glowing eyes. Ying takes a spear and frowns and says, "Oh well, these monsters are not strong enough to fight her." But suddenly, next to us, more and more appear. Hongin warily begins to count 2, 4, 6, 8. Monsters in the form of girls continue to approach them. Zionin looks at this in fear. She and Nin stand with their backs to each other and Hongin anxiously asks what they should do. There are more and more monsters. She counted 18, this is already problematic. Suddenly she notes with a smile that this is nothing. At this moment, the monsters turn from people to snakes, but Hongin uses her abilities as the monsters rush to attack. Then there is an explosion. At this time, in the next building in the men's toilet, a guy wipes his face, straightens his hair and looks in the mirror with a smile. Liu Yuan, the narcissist, says that he is handsome. Afterwards, he goes into the classroom, in which Lin Kai is also present. As soon as he opens the door, he immediately exclaims, "Ruoruo." The girl turns around and he gives her the bottle. Yuan straightens her hair and explains that yesterday she said that she wanted milk with calcium. He has a bottle here so she can take it. Ruoruo smiles shyly and takes the bottle to thank him. He is so kind. He exclaims with a smile that from now on she can tell him whatever she wants, he will get it. Then she leans towards him and whispers in his ear, can he wait for her in a secluded place after school? At that moment, a snake aura appears behind her. Liu Yuan doesn't notice this and happily shouts, good. He will definitely come there. At this moment, Lin Kai suddenly moves the desk between them and Yuan screams, he scared him. What is he even doing? Kai is silent at first and then turns to Han Ruoruo. In fact, he has liked her for a long time. People around look at him in surprise, and Ruoruo is embarrassed from surprise. Someone in the class is screaming, wow. Lin Kai's classmates surround him from all sides and watch him in awe. He repeats once again that he has liked Ruoruo for a long time. He asks her to be his girlfriend. She is embarrassed, and her friends desperately shout, come on, let's. Hooray, can't be. She must agree. Liu Yuan exclaims in confusion, table. How did this happen? He shouldn't joke like that. Suddenly Han Ruoruo briefly replies, okay, she agrees. Yuan screams in disbelief, what? At this moment, Lin Kai leaves the office and turns around to say, then they will see each other after school. She puts her hands together and looks after him and answers, okay. After a while, he stands in the corridor and Lai Yifei approaches him. He asks why he saved Yuan. He had treated him badly before. Lin Kai explains that he did not want to do this. It's just his duty. If he wants to die again, then it is no longer his business. Yifei replies that he understood what Kai Yi meant. After that, Lin Kai says that they need to go because something happened at Hongying. Lai Yifei doesn't answer but simply follows him. At this time, thick smoke is pouring out of the window of the women's dormitory. Students run out of the building and scream in horror. Did anyone just hear the explosion? Very scary. One of the teachers tries to calm them down and tells them that there is no need to panic, they should go to their dorm first. Girls try to make phone calls and ask in horror, what? Why is there no signal on my phone? The network doesn't pick up at all. What's happening? At this moment, Len Xuan is watching them from above and talking on the phone, asking the interlocutor if he can still call. The interlocutor briefly answers, yes. Xuan then takes the sign and wonders, how did old man Zhao do this before? Seems to be a forbidden ruin ringed airspace. He then sets up a sign, which immediately turns green. Len Xuan exclaims in bewilderment, why is it green? At this moment, some of the students look out the window and point their fingers and shout, it can't be. Everyone needs to look at the sky. It's green. Someone asks in surprise, really? The girls immediately take out their phones and start taking pictures. They also wonder, isn't this weird? Very scary. Bright green shines better, they ask in bewilderment, what's going on? Lin Kai also answers in confusion, he doesn't know. Something must have gone wrong with the annular airspace, right? Afterwards, he looks at the fence around which people gather and note that the women's dormitory is blocked off, so it is not so easy to get inside. This means you need to raise something to distract people. Ifai should help with this. Lai Yifai clarifies, is he? Make a fuss. How was Kai yesterday? Lin Kai explains immediately, since he intends to join the night watch, he must be willing to give up everything, including even his chastity. Lai Yifai asks in surprise, what? Chastity? Kai briefly explains, yes, chastity. With these words he pushes him away and adds, go ahead, everything depends on him. He is the best. Ifai tries to resist, but then shouts that a handsome guy is looking for the beauty. Many girls immediately turn around and clarify what? Who is this? No one seems to know him. Is the guy handsome? It is he. Who could it be? Does he know him? Then Yifai's people clear his throat and thinks, okay, he'll take the risk. Suddenly he starts screaming, Wushuji. The girl answers in fear, is she? Is he calling her? She doesn't know him. What does he want? He shouldn't come near her. Yifai shouts that he likes her. He really wants her to go on a date with him. Hearing this, Shuji faints and the girl next to her catches her and shouts in bewilderment, what? What with her? She fainted. You need to call the teacher. Other students also see this and ask in bewilderment, how did this happen? At this time, Wu Shuji repeats with tears in her eyes, she needs help. She didn't do it. She needs to be released. She is very sorry to her mother. People understand that she is delusional. At this moment, Lin Kai enters the dormitory and, observing what is happening, notes that the Yifai people are doing an excellent job. Does he have any talent? But that doesn't matter, he has to find Hong Yin. After that he begins to walk along the corridors. At this time, Hong Ying puts his spear forward and asks Zionin what is happening outside. What is this noise? She was talking on the phone and explains, apparently, that there are problems with the annular airspace, there are a lot of civilians there. Ying replies, then she can't let her go. At this moment, there are 3 snakes in front of them and it uses the Forbidden Ruin Great Feather attack. The monsters get scared and large flames appear around Hong Ying. She stars at the monsters and then directs energy from the spear at them. The monsters are completely burned, and Hongin snaps his fingers and notes, so they figured it out. Suddenly she and Zionin hear something and turn around. An unknown girl asks who is there. What's going on here? Is there a student here? Then she runs up to them and asks, confused, what class are they in? Why are they still here? Ying explains that they were putting out a fire. The girl clarifies, is there a fire? It doesn't matter now. They have to go after her, it's not safe here. With these words she grabs the heart by the hand and begins to pull. Zionin screams in pain but continues walking. They go down the stairs and the girl there screams for them to go faster. At that moment, Lin Kai appears and shoots the girl directly in the chest. Fall and cuff, and then she turns into a monster and continues to hold the hand of the heart. Hong Ying rushes towards her and shouts, Zionin. The huge reptile opens its mouth and Zionin screams in horror. At this moment, Kai approaches. Zionin waves her sword and shouts for this monster not to come near her. This has to go. Kai takes aim and shoots at the monster. The monster is left without a head and an arm. Lin Kai extends her hands to Zionin and asks if she is okay. She looks at him with big eyes and says nothing. Then she gets up and at that moment Hongin comes down to them screaming. She asks what is he doing here. Kai notices her, Hong Ying. He knew they were in trouble, so he came. Where are the other monsters? Ying crosses her arms and notes in satisfaction that she killed them all. Then Lin Kai clarifies, where is the main monster? Did she kill that too? In response to this he stammers and says nothing. Then Lin Kai thoughtfully says, the monster should be sitting in the lair. What if it left the bait and escaped first? Ying clarifies, are monsters that smart? Kai explains that this mythical creature can perfectly imitate human behavior. The monster's intelligence must be at the human level. The strategy also confirms this. The monster decided to start infecting the women's dormitory and then secret places to spread the infection. If Lai Yifai had not accidentally stumbled upon it, he might not have known about its existence for another 6 months. By then a monster, Hongin adds, by that time a monster with high intelligence would have managed to infect the entire city. This is the first time she has encountered something like this. At that moment he was walking to Zionin, raises his hand and points to the top and asks what is this. At this moment one of the monsters is visible on the stairs. They immediately set off in pursuit. Lin Kai notes that the monster is too fast. It's trying to climb onto the roof. At this moment the monster opens the doors and disappears onto the roof of the building. Kai runs out after him, but suddenly coughs and squints at the green light around him. Ying breathes heavily and asks why she got tired so quickly. Kai also coughs and, looking forward, asks what the monster is doing. The monster stood on the roof of one of the buildings and hissed menacingly. Then it twisted and made a terrifying sound. Hong Ying and Lin Kai immediately covered their ears. The sound spread throughout the school grounds. The students heard this and could not understand what kind of sound it was. Has anyone else heard this? At the same time, the infected students began to turn into monsters and attack other students. Healthy students screamed in horror and asked for help. Monsters should not approach them. Lin Kai approaches the main monster and points his gun at it. But the big reptile laughs and then jumps down. Lin Kai runs to the edge of the building and, looking down, notices that the monster has escaped. Where has he gone now? He stands behind him and also looks down attentively. Then she jumps down and shouts for Kai to go protect the students, and she is in the middle behind the snake. The lamp of the church listens to her and exclaims, "Good." The students break in horror and scream, "There's a monster there. They must run away." Lin Kai tries to stop them and shouts, "They must stop. They must follow him. Students will not be able to leave school now. They should listen to him." But the students continue to run out of the school grounds, and suddenly they come across an invisible wall. They try to knock on it and scream they need help. What's happening? Why can't they get out? Don't push. The path is blocked by something invisible. Kai looks at them and notes with irritation that no one is listening to him. They will die if it continues like this. Students desperately try to break through the barrier, and infected monsters appear among them. Lin Kai sees this and remembers Xuan's words that weapons are not only made for killing. He clenches his teeth in irritation and says he told everyone to shut up. At the same time, he raises his gun and shoots. The students immediately freeze and look at him carefully. Someone starts asking who he is. Why does he have a gun? Someone from the crowd replies that he is a policeman. Then the students start asking for help. There is a monster in the school. But Lin Kai looks at everyone present, takes out a bright yellow cloud of energy from his backpack and uses it to kill one of the monsters. The students scream in confusion. What happened? Did he kill someone? He killed a man. This man is dead. He needs help. But Lin Kai shouts again for everyone to shut up. Then the students look at him with their mouths open in surprise. Someone whispers they need to look closely at the corpse. These are actually monsters. Lin Kai pushes the monster away with his foot and silence falls around. After that he announces, now there are no more monsters among them, so they must line up and calmly leave the school. If he sees that someone is breaking the rules, then this person will have a very bad time. The students nod in agreement. After a moment, Lin Kai watches as the students line up outside the school. Kai carefully looks at them and thinks, and what? No one will try to break through. At this moment, one of the students turns and turns out to be a monster. Lang Xuan holds a sign in his hands and clings displeasedly. Lin Kai asks him to close the passage for a while. He will go to save the rest. Xuan answers, good. He will do it. At this moment, the green color of the atmosphere changes to red and Kai clarifies what is happening. Lang Xuan explains that he is poorly familiar with this ring airspace. It seems something is wrong with this. After he asks Tiesa to see if there is an effect, Kai replies that everything is fine. But with green color it was better, now everything has become like the end of the world. At this time, at school, the monster hunts students. On the 5th floor of the school, the girls scream so that the boys push his desks and chairs. They must block the corridor. He is trying to penetrate several snakes into the office with locked students. Li Yifei shouts that they need to make every effort so as not to let them in. The girls should stop screaming now. Boys drag their desks to close the passage. Yifei also screams that someone bandages the wounded. After that, complete silence occurs in the office. All students sit in different corners. Li Yifei announces that on the 3rd floor there are still several locked students. Boys who have enough endurance will go to the rescue with him. They prepare all improvised means with which they can fight monsters. After that, they bind the curtains into one rope and thrown out of the window. Li Yifei turns to the students and asks if they are ready. The boy asks with fear, will they definitely be safe this time? Li Yifei sighs and notes, this is stupidity. How will they do without danger? Someone must take the first step and show everyone the way. With these words, he goes down the rope. Li Yifei rests his foot on the windowsill and looking inside the class screams to students, which is a floor above, so that they go down. It is safe here. While the boys go down, he leaves the office and looks around. Then students come up to him and ask how the situation outside. Yifei explains that there is one monster. One of the students says, it seems the monster is trying to get into the classroom. Maybe one of the students of the 3rd floor is hiding there. Li Yifei comes out of the corner and confidently answers whether it is or not. In any case, they need to get rid of the monster. They must follow him. The monster is aggressively trying to break the door. Suddenly it notices. At this very moment, Li Yifei jumps on him with a loud scream and strikes with an axe. Other students also select with a loud scream and beat the monster. They shout that this monster is so. It must die. They need to deal with this faster. After a while, students sigh tired and ask each other, the monster died. They really did it. But Li Yifei says that they need to hurry and save people. After that, they go to the door. Yifei knocks out the window and asks, hey, is there anyone there? Is this Yifei from the 2nd class? They destroyed the monster outside, so now they need to go from here and evacuate. Some of the students pushes a wooden board from a broken window and clarifies, evacuated. Where? Yifei with a smile explains that they cleaned the 5th floor of the monsters and installed a defensive line. The students hide there. Annie Zinjay at first does not answer anything, and then straightens the glasses and explains that now all the monsters gathered on the 1st and 4th floors. How do they get to the 5th floor? Li Yifei explains that they will use the rope from the 5th floor. Zinjai sighs and then pushes the wooden board from the door. He explains that there are 28 people here. They will not force them all to climb the rope to the 5th floor. Yifei bewilderedly looks around the class and notes he did not expect that there would be so many people. Then he thinks that this guy was stuck in the class, but he knows everything about the situation. He is good. Annie Zinjai also thoughtfully replies that he is grateful that they decided to come to help. But unfortunately, their retreat plan did not work. After that, he looks at them and thinks it can also be a trap to deceive them all. One of the students runs up to Yifei and offers, since they cannot save anyone, they can return. It will be dangerous if they stay here. But Yifei explains that it seems to him that it doesn't sound very good. You need to come up with something else. At this moment, one of the students indicates ahead and shouts that everyone needs to look in that direction. There is a monster. It is approaching. At this moment, a huge monster along the corridor runs on them. Students scare and scream in horror, but Li Yifei says there that they were not afraid. You need to fight this monster. There is only one monster. But at that moment, one of the students throws a bat and running into the office screams that he is returning. Yifei tells him not to run away, but the student grabs the rope and shouts that he wants to return. A monster takes him into the office. Li Yifei and another students immediately run to this office. The student jumps and grabs the rope and immediately jumps on the reptile. Together they fall to the ground and break. Someone and students screams that this is bad. The monsters are here again. It seems they were attracted by the sound. Yifei asks in bewilderment what. Then he looks out and sees that the rope has broken. Several monsters are heading along the corridor. Yifei looks at it bewilderedly and understands that they are surrounded on both sides. Students shout to him and ask him to do something. He must say something. Yifei is very nervous and stuttering. At this moment, Nie screams to them that the guys can go inside. With these words, he unlocks the doors of the class. Monsters act and students shout that they should go faster. They all have to have time to come in. The very last moment the monsters rush to the door, but Zinjai shouts that you need to immediately close the door. As soon as they do it, a loud blow is heard in the door. Annie Zinjai commands the students to block the doors. They should not give monsters to enter. Li Yifei orders the boys to put tables and chairs. Suddenly, one of the monsters will climb through the window and tries to grab someone. Pupils scream with horror, you can block them. Monsters come in. They need help. At this very moment, the main monster goes along the corridor. This is suitable for class door. Students inside shout that they need to hold on. Monsters will not be able to enter. Annie Zinjai calms the girls and says that they would not be worried. They will withstand everything. Everything is fine. They need to hold on. 3 girls sit hugging and trembling with fear. Suddenly a loud sound is heard and Zinjai, turning, asks what is it. The main monster knocks the door and breaks inside. Annie Zinjai understands that this is the end. The girls are even more pressed against each other and scream with horror. At this moment, a liner of Kai appears, which goes along the corridor and considers monsters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and another sick monster. After that, he takes out a sword from his scabbard and shouts to reptiles they can go and play with him. The monsters immediately rush at him, but with the help of clever strikes the sword kills them. After that, 2 bright luminous circles appear around it, which blind the rest of the monsters. Annie Zinjai in bewilderment does Yifei ask what is happening from the outside. But he explains that he does not know. The golden glow emanates from the line and he runs along the corridor in an instant kills several monsters. Then a large monster appears and goes to him. From the office, whether Yifei and Annie Zinjai peek out, who are silently watching what is happening. Kai becomes opposite the monster and it rushes sharply at it. Kai strikes with a sword, but is surprised what? He could not cut the skin. The skin is incredibly thick. Monster continues to scream, and then the line of Kai inflicts several more blows to the legs. The reptile falls to the floor. The line of Kai approaches the head of the monster and bringing the sword over this that the monster died as soon as possible. After that, he sticks the sword into the head of the reptile. Annie Zinjai is surprised to ask who it is. Li Yifei cries and notes he knew that it would be so. Len Kai chooses a sword and a scabbard and thinks that he was not in vain trained with the captain. Yifei runs out of the office and joyfully screams, finally found him. He thought that Kai left him. Yifei also hugs him and notes with tears in his eyes that he spent 4 of his classmates through terrible trials almost hit the monster trap. A girl and 2 guys come out of the office. She asks hopefully, did he come to save them? The line of Kai finds out, like that. After that, he looks at Annie Kingi and asks, by the way, what is his name? He examines the corpse of the monster and explains that his name is Zinjai. Yifei clarifies this, is he the same number 1 in the city? Zinjai considers the blood of the monster and clarifies that estimates do not excite him. This world is much more interesting than he thought. After that, he gets up and holding out the hand of Kai greets. The line is also presented in response. If hugging Kai by the shoulder says that this is his very good friend, he is a professional killer of demons. But Annie Zinjai only straightens glasses. Then the line of Kai steps aside and asks Lee Ife what did he do with those who were not sure that they were monsters. Ife specified, does he mean Han Ruoruo and Liu Seiyan? For some reason, they did not go crazy but merged with the crowd. He found the reason to isolate them in another class under supervision. Lin Kai notes that he is well done. Thanks to him, it is a pity much less. In response to this, Ife asks with hope if he will continue to be so good, he will fall into the night patrol. Kai explains that he does not know this. Now is not the time to talk about it. First, they need to take students to the assembly hall. It is safer there. After some time, students go to the assembly hall one after another. The line passes the headset that they will be safe inside. How are Hong Ying? She replies that she could not catch the monster. She chased this almost through the entire school, but it just ran into the forest and disappeared. The line of Kai thinks that this incident will be repeated until the sources dies. Even if they kill the monsters one after another, this is just the treatment of symptoms, but not illness. I explains that Xiaonan is still followed by the monster. While the ring airspace is active, it will not run away. By the way, the deputy captain has already found out where the monster came from. Kai asks with surprise, right. At this time, and Sinjai was watching from afar. It explains that this monster is called the snake demon Nanda. The deputy captain rummaged in myths and classics and found only a few words in one ancient book. This monster is very smart and disguised well. It can quietly join human society. It absorbs a creature and implants a snake seed into this body to manage the creature. In the end, it will destroy humanity and replace with snake heirs. There are also restrictions on the ability to infect. It can produce only one snake seed per day. The line goes aside and replies that he understood this. At this time, he was pursued by Annie Zinjai. Kai enters the corner and turning to Han and says, which means that the monster hid for a long time. About a month. Am Zinjai also runs after him. But when he is wrapping around the corner, he is already waiting for him and crossing his hands asks how he can help. Zinjai explains that he would like to ask a question. The line is turning around and leaving says that if he wants to ask if he is a Superman or immortal, then he can forget about this issue. Annie Zinjai follows him and exclaims, no. He wants to ask if such monsters always existed. Right in humanity under the nose. The line of Kai stops and listens. Does Zinjai continue to ask? Was it always so that the monsters remained in the shadow of their life? Kai only briefly explains, yes. He also thinks that in any case, then you have to wash your memory with a witness. At this moment, Annie stops and asks menacingly while they can live without knowing anything about it. The line explains, because someone always looks after people at night. Zinjai squeezes his hands in a fist and exclaims, ah, here it is. Kai turns to him and asks, is he not afraid? In response to this, and Sinjai grinning, is he afraid? Why should he be afraid? He explains that he just thought it was interesting. It is amazing that, in addition to science, there are such amazing creatures in this world. He recently completed the magistracy in the direction of biology, and in the second half of the year he plans to start working on a candidate dissertation. He is going to defend the dissertation on genetics and mutations, as well as conduct a study in the field of clinical medicine. Kai must allow him to take several samples and analyze them, but the line of Kai turns around and saying goodbye leaves. He needs to evacuate 5 more floors. Suddenly, Li Ife runs out from around the corner with other schoolchildren and shouts to him, Picky Kai. Then he comes closer to him and asks, is he going to save other students? They go with him. He may not worry, they will not interfere with him. Kai is conceived, he is too often used by divine force, he will not remain energy soon. If he cooperates with them, then it will be easier for him to cope with enemies. He agrees, okay, they can go together. Annie Zinjai shouts that he will go too. Ife looks at him in surprise and asks, he. Zinjai explains that he can help them. He can analyze the behavior of monsters. They must let him go with them. Li Ife whispers a line that this guy is very smart. Surely it will not hurt. Kai also agrees, good, but he cannot guarantee his safety. Annie Zinjai exclaims in delight, that's great. Everything is in order, he is not afraid to die. At this time, mournful exclamations are heard in the corridor, Liu Yuan, Liu Yuan, Liu Yuan. Yuan is trying to open the door and screams that he is here. He will now pull Ruoruo. After that, he looks out the door window. Han Ruoruo with tears in her eyes says she is very scared. He calms her, she should not be afraid, he is here, everything is in order. When he turns away and Ruoruo wakes up a monster who whispers with a smile that Liu Yuan is very good. Unlike the liner, which does not care about it at all. Yuan clarifies, Kai. He is just a bastard. Suddenly, the door lock clicks and Liu Yuan shouts that now they can go. He opens the door, putting his hands on the shoulders of Han Ruoruo. He exclaims joyfully, excellent. Finally, he pulled her out. He really likes her. She should be his girlfriend. It will be 100 times better than the line. Ruoruo lowering his head down and answers with a slight smile, yes. Liu Yuan continues to exclaim, right. This is great. At that moment, behind Han Ruoryuo, someone giggles and she sharply opens her eyes. She feels how other monsters at this time are killed by schoolchildren. After that, Ruoryuo grabs his head and groans in pain. Yuan immediately asks what's the matter. Is she alright? Han Ruoryuo explains that she does not want to stay here, she is very scared. Yuan immediately exclaims, well, he will leave. After that, he grabs her hand and they begin to run along the corridor. Liu Yuan continues to repeat that he would lead her out of here. She may have no doubt about it. At this moment, a snake entity manifests itself in Ruoryuo. Yuan scatters the studio aside and was disappointed, screaming, stupid Liefei. He created so many useless barriers. Suddenly, other students run up to them, ask what he is doing here. Why did he release Ruoryuo? Yuan explains that he had just freed her. Why did they keep her there? It is illegal. If they do not let them go, then in this way they will violate the law. One of the students answers bewildered, but everything is not so simple. At this time, two girls are watching them from the side. One with fear asks how Han Ruoryuo got out. What should they do? Maybe they should wait until Ife is returning. Another girl rests behind her and explains that Ife has long been gone. Did something happen? Suddenly, strange sounds are heard from above, and when a spoon of Yuan and Ruoryuo raises his head up, he sees how many monsters jump on them. He is scared. Other guys are also horrified. They need to quickly block the defense line. But when the monster jumps right in front of them, they run away and shout that they urgently need to run to the class. The monster immediately jumps towards them. One of the guys with fright thinks that he will die. The monster approaches him and he screams because he has not yet watched the series. Suddenly, a line of Kai appears, which runs back from the desk. He flies directly above the monster and sticks his sword into his head. The upper part of the monster's head disappears and the body falls directly on the student. Kai departs and says that he gets up. He twists his head to the sides and says that after he dies, the line should not forget to burn his comics. Kai looks at him and with a sigh says that he did not die. He must get up. Then Liefei approaches him and announces that the infected in this building is over. Picking Kai thrusts the sword in the scabbard and answers, good. After that, he notices Liu Yuan and Han Ruoryuo. He comes closer and asks Yuan if he wants to take her from here. Yuan stands in a protective pose and says, yes, he wants to do it. The lion should not even think about getting closer to her. Kai takes his hand to the side and explains that he will not stop them. Yuan looks at him with surprise. The lion explains that they can go. Then Liu Yuan exclaims that he cannot abandon his words. Kai confirms this, no, he wishes him happiness. After some time, Liefei announces that all the survivors are on the 5th floor, if among them are infected. But Kai explains that there is no infected, he definitely felt it. Ife must take all students to the assembly hall, they will be able to go out when it ends. Ife immediately goes down the stairs and answers joyfully, good. At that moment, Xinjian whispers that he found something. Lin Kuei hears this and immediately turns to him and exclaims, he is confident. He knows little about this creature. He does not have enough information to draw exactly a conclusion. He doesn't need it. Lin Kuei takes out a gun from behind and explains that there are only 3 cartridges left. Does he know how to use it? Annie Xinjai charges the gun and explains that he saw it on TV. The lion shows the finger up and answers with a smile, this is enough. He should be better than him. After that, he descends and says that Annie Xinjai will go to the assembly hall and he will find the body of the snake. In response to this, Xinjai looks at the pistol in his hand and says that he hopes that he will not have to use it. At this time, in the corridor, follow the students. Ife joyfully says that they do not know, but the lion killed the monster with 1 blow. People clarify, is that true? Isn't that cool? Suddenly, the line of Kai runs past and one of the students screams Liefei that he ran in the other direction. Link asks on the headset, did you see Lang Xuan? Suan at this time lies on the roof of the building, looks at the sight of the gun and answers, he saw it. 2 students ran to the north. Then we went into the distant ones. Kai clarifies to the north, the building of the musical mug. When he resorts to this building, he addresses the headset to Hong Yin and says, it seems he found the body. Liu Yuan looks at it bewilderedly and asks why they did not escape from school and came to the building of the musical circle. Han Ruoryuo sits on the piano and calling him to say that he would go to her. What is the point of leaving? Why don't they stay here? They could do something interesting. When Yuan comes up, she hugs him. He asks, it's not good, right? Han Ruoryuo is asking what is bad about that. Does he not want her to eat him? At that moment, she turns into a huge monster. The lion stands outside the building and hears a desperate scream, suddenly falls silent and he approaches the door. I listen, he thinks, is it over? But suddenly the door opens and appears from there. The lion is very scared and poking in a spoon of Yuan with a sword screams that he scared him very much. After that, he approaches the entrance and stopping in the aisle says that the monster descends. In any case, is it the last later their snake demon at school? They must talk. He knows that the snake demon sees him through his children, so this can forget about the appearance and they can talk. The monster does not answer, and then he goes down to the ground and hesses that he has nothing to talk about with a night patrol. Picking Kai sits down at the piano stool and grins. Then why did the monster again change the appearance? Before Kai, Han Ruoruo appears in torn clothes. He turns to her and says, it seems that she knows a lot about this society. She must have been in the city for a long time. He does not understand. With the ability of a monster to disguise himself, she could perfectly fit into their society and enjoy glory and wealth. But why did she suddenly decide to expose and begin to multiply? Han Ruoruo explains that reproduction is the instinct of their race. He knows about it. He is a man. Kai asks with suspicion, a creature with such high intelligence cannot suppress biological instincts. In response to this, Han Ruoruo grins. It seems he likes to reason. Then she will ask him a question. There are 3 members of the Night Watch, Han Ying, Zai Xiaonan, who followed her, and he who can see through her disguise. She could not place the seed in Han in. She and Zai Xiaonan were together all the time, so she had no chance. But if she puts the seed in it, will they be able to find out the pattern about this? Kai listens and thinks, so this is a trap for him. At least he took her away, right? Well, it was smart. Suddenly, Han Ruoruo again turns into a monster and attacks the liner. He manages to bounce to the side and screams, a snake demon. At the end of the tail of the snake demon, the mouth opens. After that, he closes and hit the wall above the head of Kai. He grinks and asks, and does the monster call it a weak body? At this time, Hong Yin and Zai Xiaonan hears loud sounds from buildings nearby and turn around. The line of Kai from all legs rushes away from the snake demon. He deftly dodges all her attacks and thinks that he had the last drops of spiritual power. After that, he lands on the ground. The reptile attacks it with the tail, but it dodges and with the help of a sword cuts her tail. The monster screams in horror and pulls his tail. Suddenly, the liner turns out to be a pressed tail to the window and exclaims, no. The glass is broken and Kai falls out of the window. The reptile follows him and he screams that it is all over. She is not going to die with honor. The monster screams for him to die and spits green goo out of his mouth. It flies straight towards Kai and he tries to block it with his hands. Suddenly a fiery spear flies towards him and scares away the snake demon. Kai looks down and realizes that it is Hong Ying. She holds her hands up to catch the spear. Lin Kai also flies down and tells her to catch him. Ying grabs the spear, and Kai falls into the crown of the tree with a loud cry. When he lands, Hong Ying and Zai Xiaonan turn towards him. After a few moments, he approaches them covered in leaves. Ying asks if he is okay. He removes one sheet from his head and answers, yes, he's fine. She should have focused on fighting the snake demon. But Hong Ying clarifies, a snake demon, small fry. Kai just stars back in amazement. Suddenly a snake demon appears in front of them, but she immediately breaks the window and jumps inside. They approach the building and Ying asks where the monster is now. Lin Kai concentrates and explains that the monster is on the first floor, in the leftmost classroom. But she's leaving. Hong Yin then grabs the spear and remarks, this is good. She hates scattering bugs. All scattering bugs must be burned. Then she spins her spear and jumps up and bids farewell to the snake demon. After these words, she throws the spear with all her might at the window where the monster had previously headed. There is a strong explosion. Lin Kai looks at this and thinks, no wonder they don't think they're that strong. Zai Xiaonan looks at him and notes that he is sweating. Are you sure he doesn't need to go to the hospital? Kai explains, no, it's not necessary. After some time, the 3 of them approach the crater where the snake demon lies. He notes that the monster is dead. She was already tired. She was already thinking today that she would rather fight the boss and go home calmly after work. Lin Kai hears this and mentally tells her the last time she thought. Ying puts her hand on his shoulder and tells him to finish quickly. She'll treat him to dinner in honor of his first mission. Lin Kai thinks about Hong Ying and asks Zai Xiaonan what is she filming on her phone. Xiaonan explains, nothing special. At this time, students are in the assembly hall, and Kingu sits behind Lai Yifei and asks, by the way, what is the name of the organization that Kai is a member of? Yifei replies, Night Watch. It doesn't matter whether he tells him this or not, he will still have to clear Kingu's memory. And Kingu immediately asks again, should I clear my memory? Lai Yifei explains, yes, there is something in the organization that can erase memories. If anyone finds out about the situation, it will cause a lot of problems. Kingu asks, what about him? Does he want this too? Yifei crosses her arms and happily answers, of course not. When this incident is over, he will become a member of the Night Watch. Then Kingu asks what are the conditions for entry. Lai Yifei turns around and asks, does he want to join too? But it's not that simple. The organization has high demands. At that moment, a noise is heard behind them and they turn around. Lin Kai walks into the hall and Lai Yifei immediately asks how did it go. Kai explains that they did it. They killed the snake demon and it was all over. The schoolchildren shout joyfully, they are saved. No more monsters. Cool. He really killed it. When Kai comes closer, Yifei grabs his hand and asks him, this time he contributed so much, can he join the Night Watch? Kai replies, maybe. Suddenly, someone imagines a gun at the back of Lai Yifei's head. He is very surprised and at that moment Kingu shoots him several times. If he groans in pain and turns around asking why he shot at him. Lai Yifei touches his head and wonders, this is wrong, he was shot, why didn't he die? He then turns to Kai and asks why he didn't die. Did he awaken the powers? Lin Kai explains, no, he did not awaken powers. He is the snake demon, or rather, part of it. Lai Yifei screams in horror, what did he say? This is impossible. How can he be a snake demon? He is Lai Yifei. This is impossible. Lin Kai grabs his jacket and orders him to look into his eyes. Yifei begins to glow completely. Lin Kai shakes him, and he grabs his leg and arm. Lai Yifei partially reincarnates and asks how Kai knew about this. At his level, he cannot see through his disguise. Kai pulls his hand away and explains, it's true, he didn't see anything. But Yifei made many stupid mistakes. Snake demon, human skin, dormitory, riot, music club. It's all so confusing and illogical. If he wanted to escape, then why did he join the music club? They wanted to kill him, why didn't he spread the infection further? In the end, this all boils down to making Lin Yifei look like a hero. But who really suspects him is in King Yu adjusts his glasses and explains that he has already asked this question. There were many wounded students on the 3rd floor, but the infected did not attack them. Until Yifei and a group of disciples came to save them, only then did they all attack them. What really made him suspicious was the rope. One of the infected, without hesitation, rushed at a comrade who was climbing the rope, and they died together. Everything seemed logical. But if you think about it, the infected person's lack of hesitation looked more like manipulation on the part of another entity, and the goal was to break the rope. Since there was no other way out, Yifei only needed to wait for Lin Kai. Then he would see Yifei's ability and consider him a comrade, which would bring him even closer to joining the Night Watch. They made a bold assumption, but they need to connect everything. Lin Kai continues, in order to achieve an ideal disguise, the snake demon gave birth to a second personality, and the name of this personality is Lai Yifei. Lin Kai then explains that the snake demon Nanda is not like ordinary mythological creatures. Possessing the highest intelligence, the demon mastered the laws of human society and integrated into it. Later, he sensed the presence of a powerful human being, his innate alertness causing him to prepare. During this long process, he tried to disguise himself perfectly, which is how he appeared as Lai Yifei. He lived in the city as usual as a student in high school. It's no wonder that with his longevity and talent, he can enjoy everything that human society has to offer. But because of the incident with the Ghost King that happened half a month ago, he felt danger, began to panic and fear that the Night Watch would also hunt him. He couldn't beat the Night's Watch in battle, so he put on this big show to join the organization and get out of this mess. Lai Yifei listened to this and clapped his hands and said, bravo, bravo. He never thought that he would fall into their double hands. Then he transforms and the students begin to run out of the assembly hall. They scream in horror that these are monsters. They need help. The snake demon exclaims that Kai and the herons have ruined his plans. How should he pay now? Kai's plan is in front of him and the snake demon screams for him to get lost. Lin Kai tries to attack him and with a smile boils him down. Night falls and turns his powers back. After that, he inflicts several blows on the monster in an instant. The snake demon is perplexed and screams in pain. Lin Kai then cuts off his head and notes that it was too weak. He then lands on the ground and says goodbye to Lai Yifei. After a while, when night falls, Chen Mui stands near the school and asks Wu Xiangnan. He said that this was Kai's first completed task. Is it worth celebrating somehow? Xiangnan clarifies, for example, can you think about putting up a banner or something like that? Maybe bake a cake. Wu Xiangnan replies with a grin. He is like a parent in the college entrance exam. Chen Mui laughs and asks, really? This is great. At that moment, when Kimo drives by and shouts at them to get into the car. At this moment, the joyful Hong Ying, the embarrassed Sai Zionan and the upset Lin Kai also run towards them. When they come up to help, she puts her hand on his shoulder and asks, is he injured? How is his condition? Kai is in charge of nutrition. Everything turned out to be simpler than he thought. Then you can put your arm around his shoulders and say, okay, he can get in the car. It's time for them to return. Suddenly Hong Ying exclaims, Captain. Why did he leave her? Wu Xiangnan tells her that she is lucky that she did not smash the school to pieces. And what? In response, Ying shouts that she is not talking to him. He is not a captain. Suddenly a man runs up to them and shouts for Captain Chen to wait. Is there something wrong? The man runs up and continues to scream, something happened. It has disappeared. Can you clarify what's wrong? He must say immediately. The man explains that when they cleaned up the scene, they discovered that the snake demon's head was missing. They searched everyone who came out, but found nothing. Maybe someone is hiding with the head of the snake demon. Chen Mui orders them to broadcast dream whispers throughout the area, so they have to erase everyone's memory. If the one with the head loses his memory, they will catch that person. The man answers briefly, he understood. Kai then gets into the car and thinks, is it him? At this time, King Wu is hiding behind the building and breathing heavily. He runs away in horror, covering his ears and thinking that he cannot forget everything. He shouldn't do this. After a while he runs up to the hatch, lifts the lid and thinks that he can't stand it anymore. King Yu climbs inside the hatch and, opening his backpack, thinks he should at least look at this. But when he looks inside the backpack, he freezes. His eyes light up green and he looks at the hand. His hand becomes transparent and he understands, so this is it. Then he starts exclaiming, "That's it." He understood. He understood everything. With these words, he cuts the skull with a utility knife and continues to exclaim, "This is how it works." It's so funny, so interesting. After some time, Lai Yifei wakes up in the dungeon of the mental hospital of the gods and wonders where is he. He approaches the metal bars and notes that he remembers being in the assembly hall. He remembers how King Wu shot him in the head. After this, Yifei grabs his head and groans. Is he the snake demon Nanda? He killed people. Can't be. Suddenly someone's voice is heard. They should say hello again. Lai Yifei turns to see Lin Kaiyi. Kaiyi asks how is he feeling, but the snake clenches his teeth and replies he is a weak loser. After that he starts screaming loudly. Kaiyi sighs with a grin and tells him it seems he already knows his fate. The information box explains that the snake demon Nanda is a sinner. Quick choice, this mythical creature was killed by the hands of Lin Kaiyi, so he has the right to determine the fate of Yifei's soul. Option 1 is to directly destroy his soul and make sure that he is completely erased from the face of the earth. Option 2 is that if the loyalty value reaches 60, he can be hired as a nurse to care for patients and provide some protection. The current value of devotion is 0 out of 85. Lin Kaiyi thinks about it, 2 meanings of devotion. What kind of split personality is this? Lin Kai turns to Lai Yifei and asks if he knows what awaits him. Yifei angrily replies that if he kills him, then Lai Yifei will also die. Kaiyi clarifies he thinks he cares whether Yifei lives or dies. It seems to him that the demon misunderstood something. Then he hits the bars and exclaims, "It's time to show what he's worth." The snake demon is scared at first and then frowns. He then sits down on his knees, looks at Kaiyi and says he is good at camouflage and knows how to plant snake seeds. Secret of penetration are its features. But Lin Kai says that this is not enough. The snake demon clenches his teeth tighter and adds he is good at planning, he can give him advice. But Kaiyi says that this is also not enough. The snake demon clasps his hands and is at it again. Now he is not so strong, but when he grows up he can do a lot. Lin Kai continues to say that this is not enough. The demon gets angry and continues, it can shed and is difficult to kill. But Kaiyi again says that this is not enough. Something else. The snake demon is very nervous and says that he has nothing else. Then Lin Kai sits down and asks in a whisper, has he ever taken care of the mentally ill and old women? In bewilderment he asks what? No. At this moment, Lin Kai begins to get very angry. The demon gets scared and shouts that Lai Yifei is incredibly good at this. Kaiyi thinks about it, and the snake demon looks at him hopefully. Kaiyi then opens the door and says okay, he can stay, but he has one condition. Let Lai Yifei take responsibility for this body. The snake demon agrees, okay, he promises. After that, Lin Kai uses the employment contract and notes, they can now begin. Then the cage is closed and the snake demon is reincarnated. He turns out to be wearing a medical gown with a signature that he is nurse number 1. Kaiyi puts her hand on his shoulder and asks him how it feels to be resurrected. Lai Yifei waves his hands and notes, not bad. Then they walk down the corridor and Yifei asks that Boss Lin not put too much pressure on him in the future, he may not be able to stand it. Kaiyi replies that he can just call him Lin. He must now introduce it. After a while they leave the hospital and Lin Kaiyi explains that there is only one patient here. Her name is Nukta, the symptoms can be seen in the medical record. If she is okay, then Yifei can send her to watch TV or play chess with her. He should also not allow her to hold the vase all the time. Lai Yifei looks around and wonders what kind of place this is. Kaiyi continues to explain that she has an incurable mental illness, Alzheimer's disease. After that, they come to the clearing and Kaiyi shouts, "Mom." Nukta at this time sits in a special gazebo and joyfully exclaims what a good son. Lin Kai brings Lai Yifei closer to her and notes that he has found her a nurse, and now he will look after her. Yifei greets her hesitantly. Nukta chuckles and thinks. Lai Yifei thinks in fear, is she angry? She frowns even more, and then exclaims joyfully, Grandma has finally found her grandson. Lai Yifei walks up to her and exclaims that he misses Grandma too. The lampchain watches this from the side and notes, as expected. He talked to her every day for half a month and her condition improved significantly. Soon her treatment rate will reach 50%. During this time, he used the cultivation method taught to him by Wen Jiamo. It completely stabilized the state of light. It won't take long to get to the next level. After experiencing life and death battles, his control over the divine realm of mortal dust became more skillful and the accuracy of his senses increased. His reflexes constantly adapted to the purity of 100 rounds per second. The biggest improvement was in shooting. After all the training, he can barely hit a target at a distance of 30 meters. Before he knew it, the day of recruit training had arrived. Chen Mui was sitting at the table and holding a stack of Dieter papers in his hand that in a few days the training of recruits would begin, and judging by the practice of previous years, they were going to Shangjing City. He then turns to Hong Ying and says that she can escort Kai to buy some essentials. He will reimburse all expenses. Ying agree, good. A man lies on his stomach and 2 girls give him a massage. He notes, yes, that's it. The man looks at the piece of paper and asks, Canon, where is this city located? The secretary explains that Gangnan is a small city in the southeast. The man clarifies in the southeast. But hasn't this city always been in Shangjing? The secretary replies, it looks like the policy is changing. The man stands up and exclaims, then you need to book a ticket, it will fly away the next day. The secretary replies that he will adjust the schedule. Then the man leaves the room and, putting on his shirt, asks, is this canon? Then he goes. It's beautiful sunny weather outside. A man sits next to a meditation poster and, with his eyes closed, is completely immersed in meditation. Suddenly something distracts him and the man addresses him as Cao Yuan. Yuan's eyes wide. The man hands him a piece of paper and says that this is his letter. Cao Yuan reads the letter carefully and then clarifies, canon. What does the master think? Should he go? The elderly man folds his hands and explains, he has been meditating in this temple for 5 years, and the evil in his heart has been suppressed. He thinks Yuan should go. He immediately asks, but what about his sins? The man explains that killing is a sin, saving a life is a merit. Only when strengths and weaknesses are balanced can one feel peace. Then they leave the temple and Yuan thanks the master for his instruction. The man adds that before he leaves, he would like to remind him of one more thing. On a trip to Kangnan he may meet a noble man. If he takes the opportunity, then he can not only wash off his sins, but also achieve positive results. Yuan clarifies a noble man, and what are his abilities? But the man distinguishes nothing, but only laughs. After some time, Cao Yuan rides on the bus and thinks that 2 wood, 8 deities and 10 years in the night will be their guides. Buddha Amitabha. At this time, Hunting and pulls the hand of the lion and screams, yes, can't be. Purusha Sheets 20. What a beauty. Maybe he should buy it. Then she takes a suitcase and exclaims, a pink suitcase. They should buy one for Lin and Kai, okay. Zai Xiaonan immediately exclaims, yes. After that, Inkrakis also takes a backpack and exclaims, a pink backpack with a princess. Maybe this is also worth buying for Kai. Xiaonan exclaims again, excellent. He takes the dress and exclaims, this is a small dress. It is so beautiful. Maybe this is also worth buying for Kai. At this moment, the line of Kai closes to Xiaonan's mouth and exclaims, stop. After that, he grabs Xiaonan in his arms and turning to Hong and says that this is not suitable for him, they should walk and buy something else. Then he points to the dress and offers to buy this. The line of Kai is amazed at the window. After some time, he stands at the station with a pink suitcase and a pink backpack. Wu Xiaonan asks if he collected all things. Kai replies that he is ready. He approaches him and passes the package. She explains that she bought him sunscreen, depilation cream and body lotion. He should not forget to use it. He takes the package and is confused, says, of course, she may not worry. Then the skull approaches him and you can say that Changjin is different from Canon, this city is further. He will be there alone. Kai replies that they should not worry. Everything will be fine with him. In that case, he went. The members of the night patrol wave him and scream so that he is careful. Xiaonan also looks after him and notes with a smile that he finally matured. At this moment, someone can call and he exclaims in surprise, what? Then he begins to run and scream that it is necessary to stop the line. Training is transferred to Canon, but the line of Kai confidently goes forward